เ Welcome, 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 one and all, to yet another episode of WhickTV, a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. And today, we have a show for you, okay? We are going to be talking about the TikTok bill that recently passed the House and is currently going through the Senate. It's been called a TikTok ban, a TikTok 𝕵𝖎𝖙. I'm sure I pronounced that terribly. But it has created a bit of a controversy. Is this simply censorship, right? Is this, as has been claimed, an attempt to shut down voices from pro-Palestinian voices, pro-Chinese voices, etc.? Or is this an actual national security issue? Are there really good reasons to want to get a social media company out of the hands of the CCP? We're going to talk about it today. I brought some great guests with a wide variety of opinions on this, and we're going to get started with Brianna Wu. Go ahead. What are your thoughts? Tell people who you are if they don't know, and we'll get to it.
I feel like I've been on your show enough. People know me. I have a lot of national security concerns with TikTok. I think that at the fundamental level, like imagine you woke up tomorrow and China had put 20 million surveillance devices all across this country in people's homes, looking at where they go, looking at what they post, looking at their pictures, knowing what they're thinking, all of that information. This is the reality. And I think we'll get into more of the specifics about what is very troubling about ByteDance's behavior. They've had 4 years to clean up their act. They've chosen not to do so. And I think the Piper has come calling.
Okay, thanks for being here. We'll see how it goes. Next up, first time guest on my show, Christina, please. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So I'm Christina. I'm a technologist and former journalist. And my basic take on this is that I think that there are real concerns to have about China. However, the way that this bill has been handled seems to me to be make not a lot of sense. I think that if we want to pass legislation about data privacy and about how we handle data, not just foreign companies but all companies, I think that's a really good thing. I think that the way that this bill was very quickly pushed through under the auspices of national security, but without actually giving us any information about national security, that's problematic to me. I also think that it's problematic that the way that they're going to be enacting this bill would be to criminalize the behavior of the app stores and of the ISPs. I think that that has really, really negative implications on a lot of different levels that I'm just not comfortable with. So I'm not saying that I'm not comfortable that China isn't problematic and that there couldn't be some national security concerns. However, I don't think that we've had enough information about that, and I'm very concerned with the way that this bill has been pushed through.
Well, thank you for being here. We'll get into it as we go. Really appreciate you. Next up, what is this, your third time here? No opinion, please.
Hey, how's it going?
Hi. What are your thoughts?
Oh well, so I think this is a good bill. It's very narrowly defined. It's not the kind of broad-based thing that could be interpreted as a bunch of attacks on various media outlets or social media outlets or speech in general or whatever. And of course, they had to do that because if you don't make it very narrow and targeted and well-defined, then you're going to get taken down in court, right? We have a First Amendment, freedom of the press, freedom of speech, and you're not going to survive. So the bill was crafted to pass legal review, to pass legal muster. And what's at the heart of the bill, first of all, the bill doesn't ban TikTok. The bill just says TikTok has to not be owned by a Chinese company, because in China there's a couple laws in China. Number one, TikTok's owned by a Chinese company called ByteDance. And interestingly, the actual TikTok app is banned in China. They have a similar thing called Douyin, owned by the same company, but actual TikTok is banned in China. But a couple things. Number one, all the data that ByteDance has is officially owned by the Chinese Communist Party. So TikTok does spy, and data privacy is very difficult because it's really, really, really hard to enforce. You can pass a data privacy law, but then TikTok has already said repeatedly it's going to protect the data of Americans, the private data, so that it doesn't go to China. And then each time it's been found out, oops, actually they gave it all to the Chinese government. So it's clear that data privacy is not going to work, and TikTok is going to continue to give Americans' personal data to the Chinese government as Chinese law requires it to do, as long as it's owned by the Chinese company, which is subject to Chinese law. So that's the first thing. And I think the second concern here, which I think for most people is actually the bigger concern, is the idea that the Chinese Communist Party can then exert control on what Americans see and what Americans don't see, and block Americans from seeing certain things. And so that's been really important. So they've done a study where they looked at Instagram Shorts, the TikTok competitor. And they looked at that and they said, okay, so how popular is a topic on that versus how popular is it on TikTok? So they saw that for most political topics, like Black Lives Matter or whatever, Me Too, and just various other things, Israel, Palestine, the ratio was pretty constant. between Instagram and TikTok. But then for a few topics, such as Tiananmen Square, the repression of the Uyghurs in Xinjiang, and Hong Kong, the protests in Hong Kong from 2019, on those topics, the amount of those hashtags on TikTok was like an insanely tiny fraction, like 0.1% of the amount on Instagram, when for other topics, political topics like Israel-Palestine or whatever, it was more like 40%, right? Or for Black Lives Matter or whatnot. So that's very damning and direct evidence that the Chinese government is censoring what people can see on TikTok. And in fact, there have been leaks saying that Chinese government people went to the employees of ByteDance, the Chinese company that owns TikTok, and they said, don't let people see these topics, and the ByteDance employees complied. So we have, that was from a couple of years ago, so they can say, oh, we're not doing that anymore, blah, blah, but they are. Evidence that they are. And so we know they're doing it. So the question is, should a foreign government be allowed to censor what Americans see in our media? We don't allow our own government to censor what we see in the media. Why should we allow the Chinese government to censor what we see in the media? Why should we allow the Chinese government to step in and say, you're not allowed to talk about Tiananmen Square. You're not allowed to talk about Xinjiang. You're not allowed to talk about the protests in Hong Kong. Our own government can't do that. Why should a foreign government be allowed to do that? And so, forcing TikTok to divest, to, not be owned by a Chinese company, which will not destroy the service. It'll still be there. There'll still be TikTok. It'll just be owned by some other company, right? Forcing that, that will simply remove the foreign government censorship from TikTok. I think that's a good thing to do. In terms of, it's also worth noting, just as a last point here,
Sure.
that we've done this before. So we actually forced a Chinese company to sell Grindr when they owned Grindr, the gay dating app, and we protected our gays
bill,
from.
though. That wasn't through a bill.
True.
That was through an established process that
Correct.
so
CFIUS.
far has through CFIUS, which has not happened yet.
True.
I mean, they've been investigating TikTok for years, so I think that's actually an important distinction.
And
Those aren't the
CFIUS,
same things.
No, you're right, and CFIUS may move on this, but my point is that CFIUS's actions,
Yep.
CFIUS is part of the executive branch, and CFIUS's actions are also subject to the First Amendment, just like congressional actions are, right? So
I don't mean to interrupt and things, but we would this is open topic stuff that we want to get into, and I
understand. The only reason is the reason I'm still talking is because someone else wanted to make a point in the middle of my opening statement. I just wanted to finish the opening statement.
Go ahead, finish.
So the end of the opening statement is that we've done this for Grindr, and so yes, through a different agency, but subject to all the same constitutional laws and whatever. And so that was fine, and so this is fine too. And so we definitely there's really just nothing wrong with this bill. It's a good bill.
Okay, thank you, and I'm sure we'll get some back and forth in the open discussion. But I want to give time to my friend Primecayes, who's graciously decided to join us as well. Primecayes, tell people who you are and what are your thoughts on the bill.
Hello all, my name is Primecayes. I do something similar in my channel. We have debates, we talk, and it's a lot of fun. Wick's a great friend. Wick reached out to me to have this discussion. He was looking for people who are, interested in TikTok and wanted to defend TikTok. I myself, I'm not. I'm not interested. I don't really want to defend it. And I I'm not a fan of the CCP. But Wick did beg, grovel, I think is probably the best word for it. And after sending me enough messages, properly stroking my ego, I decided I'll throw him a bone, up and coming kid. I'll help him out. So here I am. Now we gotta continue. We gotta wrap it up now, Wick. I'm not a fan of the CCP. I'm not a fan of the way they do business or how they impose themselves on their private companies, right? Private in quotes there in China. I hear people when they talk about how there's a conflict of interest. This should be an area of concern that we should keep track of. Fair enough. right? I'm not a fan of social media in general. I'm just like I'm not that guy. This has been well noted. However, I can see a miscarriage of justice when it presents itself. So I'm not gonna pretend that the top line reasons why this bill is moving through Congress are what politicians state they are, right? At least not in directly, right? There's plenty of evidence that does point to exactly what they're thinking. And it's quite different just from the national security threat of the Chinese government. Come on. And beyond that, there is the obvious idea that U.S. Corporations are a much bigger threat to our privacy than China. I'm really interested in engaging with this. I'm curious because it's interesting, like the points the other side has brought up so far. They do seem a bit surface levels, but I'm really interested in digging into this and seeing
Okay.
where we could go. So let's get started.
Okay, and with that, I guess we will open it up.
I've got
Um,
a question.
oh,
I've got a
please go
question
go
I
ahead.
want to ask. All right, hard question for, and just so people know, Christina and I are good friends. We did a show together for about a decade, so we're going to disagree today, but it's going to be friendly disagreement. So, it seems to me if you wanted the strongest evidence possible that TikTok should be sold, TikTok was very helpful for people like me and provided it for us. So, in case you don't know, TikTok put out a push notification for every single one of their users with a lot of alarming language saying, I do believe TikTok was in risk of being shut down, and that they should all the users should call their representatives immediately. And because of this, Gen Z had to learn to work a phone, which I'm sure was very interesting, a good new experience for them. And congressional offices were flooded with basically people demanding that they take this bill away. If you wanted to design something to show that TikTok and ByteDance could be very ham-fisted and put their finger on the button and wield their massive audience for political legislation, this is a really good example. And it's worth noting they are doing this in an election year. I am personally of the opinion we're going to need Gen Z to win this election. And by kind of framing it in a way that they want and making Congress seem like the bad guy to an entire generation, they're really proving just how much political authority they can wield. I thought Noah was very dead on when he said, we don't let the United States government do this. Why should we let China? I think, this needs an answer.
We do. I mean, like we don't let the U.S. government do this. I mean, the U.S. government does do this. Now,
No, it
I'm
doesn't.
not.
No, it doesn't.
I was sorry.
No, the U.S. government doesn't censor things on Facebook. Doesn't tell you. Doesn't like block hashtags on Facebook. It doesn't block hashtags on Twitter. We don't do that.
No, we don't do that.
No,
Okay,
we don't
so
do that.
there was a massive movement, a movement that I disagreed with, to be very clear, right? Against the vaccines, the COVID vaccines, and that information was suppressed, right? We have those U.S. Based companies suppressing that information, punishing those who tried to spread it. There is clear contact with the U.S. government like through committees, right? To deal with misinformation, and you can say that, and I would say that, for instance, when we talk about the COVID example, that the vaccine skepticism was driven by a ton of awful information. So I can agree with you there. But to say that the U.S. doesn't take any hand in what social media companies do, when we censor, for instance, and again, something I might agree with, actual national security threats where like ISIS or what's the other one? Terrorist groups push information or videos on those platforms and they get taken down when the U.S. government helps take those things down. All of that is censorship, whether you agree with it or not.
I mean, okay, I'm gonna be in a weird position where I'm actually gonna kind of agree a little bit with Noah here. I agree with what you're saying. I definitely think that the U.S. government takes measures to try to, we have judicial hearings about things like misinformation and the role that social media companies need to play. And that's usually a lot of posturing on politicians' behalf. I do think there is a difference, though, between company themselves making the distinction, we want to take down this information, and a U.S. entity saying, we are going to take this down. Having said that, it is not there isn't a lack of precedent for companies to have to follow laws in other jurisdictions. Now, if we can show that there's conclusive proof that information has been suppressed at the behest of the Chinese government in the United States, I think that
It's
that's
already
one
been
thing to look
admitted.
at.
It has been
Well,
admitted
I mean,
publicly.
again, I think that's interesting. Again, I don't
What
know how
more
illegal
proof
that
could
is.
you get?
Well, I mean, because we don't. Okay, so fine. Let's even
You have
accept
said
that.
it.
I mean, I think that's interesting. I still don't think that's illegal. I still don't think that's necessarily reason to have to ban something. But for instance, content that people send
It's not
out.
banned. It's not a ban. It's just taken
Well-
out of the hands of the Chinese government. It's saying,
Well,
look,
forcing
if the
us
United
out. Well,
States
we-
government, the United States government could not simply buy Facebook and then, censor things on Facebook,
Right,
yeah.
but at the same time, Facebook has to follow German laws, right? And they have to adhere to things the German government abides by.
If China's government makes a law saying what American kids are allowed to see on TikTok, TikTok has to follow that law in fucking America?
I mean, look,
What?
to me, okay, I mean,
No,
right?
Let her
but
respond. Let her respond.
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree on the face that seems absurd. My big question is, why is that something that we are now taking to the level where we're saying this application is now banned on ISPs? App stores now have to take this process, and we're going to have this very well crafted law that is very specific about this one company. But what about all the other Chinese companies that exist? What about all of that? I mean, to me,
This bill
a lot of this is a red
is not
herring.
specific to TikTok. Have you read the bill? It is not
Yes, I
specific to
have.
TikTok.
It
is not. It does not even
it
mention
specifically
TikTok.
calls out ByteDance. Oh, it literally in the first sentence of the bill, it calls out ByteDance and TikTok and says, or any subsequent company owned. Like that, it literally says ByteDance
applies
and
to any
TikTok
Chinese company.
in the first sentence. It's
This applies
literally
to any
there.
Chinese company. It is not a bill of attainder. You're not allowed to do that.
No, this is literally specifically calling out in explicitly TikTok. Now, if you
It's
want
an
to,
example. The point is, you're not allowed to make a bill about a specific company. That is unconstitutional. You're not allowed to do it. That's called a bill of attainder. You're not allowed to do it. This is not that.
I mean, it is, but
Or
it's
should
not.
it be?
I mean,
because we don't want China's government
The,
just grabbing
so why
another
is
company and doing the same thing.
So why is WeChat not the subject of this when far more misinformation and that sort of thing is spread through WeChat? What about Zoom? Like there are a lot of other companies that have very big Chinese investments, very large Chinese investments that are not being discussed at all. In my opinion, if you're going to throw one away, you need to throw them all away because
Well-
if that's the argument you want to make, then make that argument. Then pass that bill.
Zoom is certainly in trouble about this. Zoom is in trouble.
They should be, but they're
They should
not
be.
but they're not a discussion about any of this. To me, what Zoom does is far more insidious. The information they've provenly given to the Chinese government about citizens living in the United States. To me, we have evidence of that. I don't have any evidence that I've seen that has been published other than hearsay of any sort of information that the Chinese government is taking about U.S. citizens and cataloging them through their name. I mean, it's. To me,
that has
that's
been
a
admitted
big
too. But I was
stretch.
talking about Chinese government censorship, not Chinese government surveillance. But we also have direct admission of Chinese government surveillance on American citizens through the TikTok app. So we have that.
Sorry,
too.
where do we have this direct government surveillance? Could
Yeah.
you
Okay,
expand
so
on that, please?
And just a little housekeeping while he does that. Brianna's having computer troubles. Hopefully she can
Okay,
get
that's a
back
shame.
here. I don't know
Yeah.
what the deal is with that. Hopefully she can fix it though. And if not though, I'll tap one of my backups to get in here. So, but we'll give her a few minutes. Go ahead.
No.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
oh no, go ahead.
No, I'm saying. Oh, so I was giving you the floor, Noah. Sorry, please go ahead.
Okay, so TikTok created a thing called Project Texas to separate American user data from ByteDance, the company. That was after direct admissions that TikTok had tracked American journalists. Trying to find a good quote here. TikTok has admitted tracking This is from 2022, December 2022. That was a little over a year ago. TikTok has admitted that it used its own app to spy on reporters as part of an attempt to track down the journalist's sources, according to an internal email. The data was accessed by employees of ByteDance, TikTok's Chinese parent company, and was used to track the reporter's physical movements. The company's chief internal auditor, 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙𝖘𝖍𝖔𝖜, who led the team involved in the operation, has been fired, while his China-based manager, 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙𝖘𝖍𝖔𝖜, has resigned. They looked at the IP address of journalists who were using the TikTok app in an attempt to learn if they were in the same location as employees suspected of leaking confidential information. This leak led to the initiation of Project Texas. So,
Just a note,
now,
U.S. companies have done that repeatedly. HP actually did that
yep,
3
no,
times
you're right.
against U.S. journalists. I'm just pointing that out. Like, this is not
Yeah.
a unique thing. Now, and that doesn't absolve it from being bad, but I do think the hypocrisy does need to be called
That's
out.
true.
There was never any legislation. There was never even any discussion about what HP did to journalists, and they did that repeatedly in the 2000s.
So if I may
IBM did
ask,
it as well.
sure, if I may ask to since Brianna's not here, I'll jump in a little bit. But Christina, is that okay to call you Christina? I don't know if
Oh
you
yeah, of
guys.
course.
Okay,
All
fair
right.
enough.
Was I frozen?
Hmm?
Was I frozen? I couldn't hear anybody.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry,
Can
you were
are you
frozen.
good? Are you here
Yeah,
now?
I'm good now. Yeah.
Okay, sweet. Um. Okay, yeah. Okay, my question. So I understand when you say that I understand your argument that this isn't going through the proper procedures. It's bypassing the normal steps that we would take. Do you have a specific motive that you would ascribe to why they are doing this? Right? Why are they, in your opinion, singling out TikTok for this kind of treatment? Because as you mentioned, we have done this to other things before, right? So why is TikTok different, in your opinion? I don't know
In
if you
my
know or if you
opinion,
have a guess.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, in my opinion, I think it's because of what its valuation is. I think that it's a very valuable company, and I think it could make a lot of people a lot of money. When I look at, and I try not to be any sort of conspiracy theorist or anything, but when I look at people like 𝕲𝖏 who are allegedly brokering the deals to get investors to be able to buy the company, assuming that the Chinese government, ByteDance even wants to sell it. I mean, they could just take their ball and go home or whatever. I that does make me kind of question things. I think this is a very potentially profitable company that has a lot of information, frankly has a lot of data that US companies would love to sell for their purposes. Again, like if there are valid national security reasons for this to be something that CFIUS or other things need to go through and ban, I'm open to that. My problem is the fact that the way this bill was pushed through so quickly, and in my opinion, like the lack of transparency about what it's doing, in addition to the fact that the measures they're taking to sort of criminalize it at the ISP level, which will set precedent, whether it's this narrow bill or not, it will set precedent that I find very, very dangerous for lots of different reasons to set, to criminalize the app stores and the ISPs. I have massive problems with that. But as to why, this is a very, very
Sure.
profitable, very
Yeah.
rich company.
Yeah. If I could jump in, Christina,
Sure.
you're a former journalist, and I know, like, from the decade we've talked, like, you really, really care about the press. I don't think it's just about the valuation. In 2022, ByteDance employees were caught surveilling United States journalists who were reporting on TikTok because they were trying to figure out who was leaking internal conversations and documents over to them. So, it's like they claim to have cleaned it up, but it's like you're presenting a theoretical harm, and it's like here is a very real harm. You have somebody that's been shown to want to spy on journalists there.
Right, right.
That's really grievous
Which
to
U.S.
me.
companies do all the time,
Yeah.
and so to me, it's the hypocrisy is what it really comes down to. If I'm not shown an actual national security harm, then if someone wants to use an IP address, which look, I'm not saying that that's an okay tactic to take. I think that's pretty fucked up, and I think that there are better ways of finding out which employees of yours are leaking things and not. But like HP literally hacked journalists' emails, so there's like multiple times. So I hear you, but I also feel like I personally need a lot more than
Mhm.
what we have been given to feel comfortable with this. If there is information that is more than that, fine. But I think simply being like, this is from a country that we don't trust and we don't like, but we're not doing this against any of the other mass communications platforms that this country offers. I have a problem with that. And I
Well, I
think one of
think
the
a
big differences.
reason. Yeah,
Just a
go
little
ahead. I'm
Sorry,
sorry.
go on.
housekeeping
No,
thing. I don't know if your camera's working or not, Brianna, but it's not on.
it's not. I'm
Okay, fair
sorry. I'm
enough.
trying to
That's fine.
fix it.
Okay.
Yeah. No, and I hear you on that, Christina. It's just I think my perspective on this is that we have always held foreign businesses to different standards than we do U.S. businesses. I mean, Rupert Murdoch. You know, I don't know if you remember this, but when he was trying to buy a series of I think it was TV stations. It wasn't, yeah, it was TV stations. They made him actually become a United States citizen to do that. So I agree with you. There's a double standard. I think the difference of opinion I would have here is it's a double standard we've had for a long time. It's also worth saying China would have no issue whatsoever doing this to us. No
Of course
issue
not.
whatsoever, you know? So I don't know. I have no problem with the double standard.
So yeah, um, I think that it's interesting that like the example that you hello Brianna, thanks for I'm glad you're back.
Yeah.
It's interesting that the example that you give is simply that they forced a guy with a lot of money who is politically powerful to become a U.S. citizen, and then that like patched it up. I mean, I guess like if that's your standard for like was it national security or scrutinizing foreign owned companies, is that like the leader gets a U.S. citizenship, then okay, whatever, right? Then we can do the same with TikTok. I'm not sure if the person who is the head of it now is a U.S. citizen. He sounds like he is, like in terms of his voice, but I don't know. Um, and sure, we can solve it there. Like we know that Oracle. A U.S. company is assisting and hosting the data that TikTok has on U.S. residents, and that data can be audited. I mean, it's really simple. Like we have this ability. We have experts on it now. We have a deeper insight into the goings ons of TikTok, at least the U.S. branch of it, than we do on any other company. But still, this is a problem. You brought up earlier that imagine if TikTok had 20 million, or the Chinese government had 20 million surveillance devices across America. Like, sure, but like we still like this is just like theoretical that they're doing this, and beyond that, we have these U.S. corporations who have who have treasure troves of data. Like Google endlessly gets in trouble for improperly collecting data. There was that one time where it was through their cars. You know, they had those cars like going around the country, right? And they were like collecting Wi-Fi passwords and other various data, right? Like Google constantly gets in trouble with this, but I don't hear a national security threat when it comes to them. Maybe because they
You
are a
sure.
contractor for the government, right?
Did you miss all
So is
the many
Amazon.
hearings we've had with Facebook and Google and all the social media networks? Because there've been a
We
lot of
did.
them. Yeah,
No, we indeed we did.
yeah,
Yeah,
they're in the
sure.
shit all the time
Are
with
they?
you. Yeah.
No, that's true. That's true. But are they national security threats?
Yes.
Because
Do
Where's
you
the
that's
where's the
remember Cambridge
legislation?
Analytica?
yeah. Where's
Yeah.
the legislation? They're national security
Exactly. Where's the
threats. Okay.
legislation on that? I mean,
Yeah.
if we actually want to solve these things, then I think we should solve it. And if it takes out
Exactly.
TikTok or forces them to divest, great. But then hold everyone accountable for that, right? If
Hmm.
we actually care about the data, and I don't think we do. That's the
No,
thing. We don't care
we
about the
don't.
data when it's Google. We don't care about the data when it's Facebook. We don't care about the data when it is any other, even Chinese companies. We don't care about Tencent. We don't care about Alibaba. We don't care about the fact that there are majority Chinese-owned, firms for a lot of our communications tools. We mentioned Zoom earlier, but they're not the subject of any of this legislation. I would actually feel better if this
Yes,
was
they
like
are.
almost a bipartisan
They are.
thing. Well, I mean, the focus even in Congress, all the focus has been on TikTok. They haven't mentioned Zoom once that I've
The
seen.
fact
Like,
that it's the
you've seen
focus, that
anything?
doesn't mean that's what the bill. That doesn't mean the bill doesn't apply to Zoom. It does. It's a law.
The law, but as you pointed out
It's a
in your
law.
opening statement, the law, as you pointed out in your opening statement, the bill rather, as you pointed out in your opening statement, literally in the first sentence calls out any application or service developed or provided by ByteDance Limited or any entity under the control of ByteDance Limited That's literally in the first sentence
But
of
the
the
law
bill.
doesn't just apply to ByteDance. The law applies to any company.
Well, we don't even know what a presumed law would look like. The bill, as it's written right now,
That's what I
literally
mean. The
is
bill.
about
If the
right.
bill, if a bill's signed into law, that becomes a law, and then that bill that you're reading now will be a law. So when I say
Right,
the
which
law,
calls,
I mean the
but
bill.
I'm saying right, and so the bill literally calls out ByteDance or any entity under the control of ByteDance. Literally, the first sentence says
But it
to
doesn't
protect
just
the
apply to
national security of the
ByteDance.
United States from the threat of. I mean, so how
I
how,
will.
how do you enforce how do you enforce it if literally
Okay,
'cause
we
the,
gotta.
the bill isn't fine.
No, it's fine. I understand. We just got to give him time to respond. You are asking him
Sure.
a question. We
All
got
right.
to give Noah a chance to answer. Go ahead, Noah.
Hold on. Well, I'm going to get the text of the thing because, you know,
I'm looking at the text, but sure.
I know you're looking at the text. I'm going to read the text because, all right, so let's look at that. Text of the bill here, blah, 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 blah. To protect the national security of the United States from the threat posed by foreign adversary-controlled applications, such as TikTok. Prohibition of foreign adversary-controlled applications. It shall be unlawful for an entity to distribute, maintain, or update, blah, 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 a foreign adversary-controlled application by carrying out within the United States or maritime borders of the United States, providing services to distribute, maintain, blah, 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 providing internet hosting services, blah, blah, blah. It mentions TikTok at the beginning, and there's nothing in this bill to say that this applies specifically to that company.
I don't understand when the bill.
Foreign adversary-controlled applications.
This is a weird point to fight over because the bill literally states TikTok. And then to say that it states TikTok, it doesn't state
but
anything
the point is,
else.
Why not
right?
Zoom? Why not Zoom? It applies to Zoom.
Yeah, okay, understood. Okay,
why not?
Great.
Why aren't they debating
sure,
Zoom?
Hold
they
on,
should be
hold on,
fine.
Hold on.
Same principles
Understood.
apply.
But your assertion that that this isn't a bill targeting TikTok when it has TikTok in the bill of text that you just read. So, like, I don't know why this is
specifically targeting TikTok. It's not when people's objection to this bill is why don't we target Zoom? Well, it does.
Oh, sure, okay.
This bill applies to Zoom.
Okay.
This bill applies to WeChat. This bill applies to all foreign adversary controlled.
But is Zoom is our investment our investment groups like getting together to buy Zoom? Is Zoom going to be forced to sell? You're saying that Zoom
maybe?
Well, it's a public
Will
company.
it? Why maybe? Why maybe?
Well, no. So Zoom is not actually owned by China or a Chinese company. Zoom is an American company. However, it has a research unit in China, and they may force it to do something involving that. So I don't know.
So it's an American company. So it's not owned by a foreign adversary, correct? Okay.
Yes, but its research arm is, so that's a subsidiary, so the law may apply to that. I'm not a lawyer. However, I do know that even though the bill talks about TikTok,
then it doesn't apply to Zoom.
Even though people are debating TikTok, you can't say, why don't we apply this bill to all these other companies as a reason against this bill when it already does apply to all the other companies?
No, it doesn't. It applies to foreign companies owned by foreign adversaries.
Yeah, exactly. And no matter what their name is.
Yeah, and it just so happens to be the one that's going to be bought or banned will be TikTok, the one in the bill. So, like, I'm not going to argue this point. It makes this is just a waste of time. So we're going to move past it, right? This idea that, like, you guys were wondering. Why is TikTok being targeted? Maybe it's its valuation, maybe it's a big bill or a big company, right? I think part of the reason is that TikTok simply doesn't have protection in Congress. TikTok is not a massive donor on Capitol Hill, and so that certainly affects things. They haven't greased anyone's wheels. It's interesting how massive the support in Congress has been, at least in the House of Representatives. For this bill, you would think that we'd have like a great support in the country to ban TikTok, but no, it's actually a minority position. But all of a sudden, we have this massive.
What does that say that again?
It's a minority position.
Sorry, what's a minority position?
Banning TikTok.
Really? Are you sure?
Yeah. Well, take a look.
Listen.
Okay. Any case, so the
December 11th, 2023.
Okay, so
support outnumbers oppose, yeah.
Yeah. So okay, I'm gonna give it.
So what he's saying though, Prime, just so you're clear, is, at least according to
46% of
Noah.
respondents support a nationwide ban and 35% oppose it. Well,
hold on. So I'm going to deal with that in a second. One second. But the reason why individuals within the halls of power seem to want to ban TikTok is because of the information that is not being suppressed. We have quotes, we have statements from individuals close to power in American government. They are saying that it is because of the war in Gaza that we have massive support among the youth for the Palestinian cause. And this is an issue. That October 7th has opened the eyes of people as to what's happening on TikTok. So like that's why we're having this push right this second, at least from my opinion, because otherwise it doesn't make sense. Otherwise, why ban this one company in particular? I mean, it's
Okay.
the
Yeah.
assertion.
Tell you why.
Yeah.
Okay, you go first, and then I'll go.
Yeah, you guys
afterwards.
can.
Taiwan. World War III.
Sorry, what? I don't know.
Taiwan. World War
III.
III.
I don't understand.
If China invades Taiwan very soon, as there's some indication that it might, what will happen the next day? Pro-China messages will be amplified. Anti-China messages will be suppressed. Messages saying we need to defend Taiwan will be suppressed on TikTok the next day. That will happen. And this will inhibit our ability to respond to the most important military conflict of our time.
Yeah.
That is exactly what the problem is, because ultimately China is not, TikTok and Instagram both have plenty of stuff on Israel-Palestine. There's tons of stuff on Instagram's not suppressing Palestine. Like there's overall more Palestine stuff on Instagram than there is on TikTok. And nobody's suppressing Palestine stuff. It's not about the stuff that's getting suppressed is all China specific. They're suppressing Hong Kong, Tiananmen Square, Uyghurs. They're suppressing. That's what they're suppressing. Those are the specific topics they're suppressing.
I didn't say,
and that will happen the day of a Taiwan war.
Wait. Okay, so I'm ignoring all that because I didn't address what I just said. Okay, so quickly to address with the thing about the polling, right? A new poll by the Associated Press and NRC, Center of Public Affairs Research finds a three-way split when it comes to banning the app, with 31% U.S. adults saying they would favor a nationwide ban on TikTok use, while 35% say they would oppose that type of action. Additional 31% of adults say they neither favor nor oppose a ban on the social media platform, which is owned by Beijing-based ByteDance. Among those who use TikTok at least daily, a national ban would be highly unpopular. 73% say they oppose it. So there you go.
But,
So can I just jump in super quickly here?
April 11th through 17. Sorry, I'm looking at a Wall Street Journal poll that says that although only 46% of people favor banning TikTok, 52% favor selling TikTok to U.S. buyers, while only 22% oppose. So remember, this bill does not ban TikTok. This bill says that TikTok must be sold to U.S. buyers or a non-Chinese buyer,
or banned.
And a majority of Americans support that.
Or banned. Or banned.
Majority of them. Well, you have to follow the rules.
Oh, you just have the rules that you've just made for TikTok. Indeed, you have to follow the rules that were just made for TikTok.
Owned by China.
We can make rules.
That's right. You make the rule not for TikTok, but for all companies owned by foreign adversaries. If you make that rule, and then they don't follow the rules, guess what? You suffer the consequences.
Kings, come on, I gotta step in here. Okay, we can't hear either of you because you are all. I love the passion, I love the energy, but we gotta.
Well, that's better than hearing only him
in this court. Okay.
Oh, well, hold on. You've been talking the most. Right? What are you crying? You're already crying about this?
Stop.
No.
Both of you stop. Both of you stop. Brianna wanted to get in here. Maybe Brianna can combo break this.
Sure.
We're gonna pass it to her for a minute, and then we're gonna give it to Christina if she wants to get in too.
So
and then we'll let you guys have your contest.
Sure.
So first of all, I just want to acknowledge what Noah said. This is a non-trivial thing. We are queuing up for a confrontation with Taiwan. It would be disastrous. It would affect your quality of life. I think it speaks a lot that both the right and the left throughout the legislature can see this. So I don't think you should dance past that. I also want to say, we know that TikTok will abuse this. There was reporting in the New York Times that there was this tool that was developed that was trying to determine if TikTok was going to, basically cheat the algorithm for their own goals. And they found that with the Uyghurs, they were doing this. And ByteDance's response to this was to basically nuke the research tool that allowed us to figure out if they were treating something neutrally or not. So if you're worried about like Palestine in the long game, I think you should really question if China and ByteDance are going to be committed to that, because the objective evidence is they're not. I think, like, respectfully, I don't know you all, but I really feel like you've been in amnesia since the Trump administration, because we've been talking about this for a really, really long time. We were talking, Christina, can you help me remember this? Didn't we like force ByteDance to offload the servers to Oracle or something?
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
in 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
Stated
yeah.
that
That was
earlier.
4 years ago. Like, this is something we have been talking about constantly, and TikTok is only growing in power. So I find this to be a really it's just not a strong argument, to be honest.
So once again, I already
Yeah,
stated that Oracle, I brought that up. I was 100% in the conversation, but that's okay.
your
And then,
stipulation is that this is new, and that's just not true.
no. I said why it's happening now. Why is
It's
this
been
so the
happening for the
case
last
at
4
this
years.
second? Okay,
Yeah.
so the last time when you addressed a point of mine, you talked about how U.S. companies have been tech companies, social media companies have also been brought before Congress. So I'm going to ask you: are they national security threats? Right? Because you seem to be equating them to TikTok, saying that this isn't any particular. This isn't a targeted action. This is just like a sentiment.
Do I think that is a national security threat? Absolutely. And to bring it back to Christina, because I want her to be able to jump in, something she said at the very beginning of the show is dead fucking on. That we don't have any federal laws about basically data collection, and anyone can misuse it. I think we're seeing the effects on our politics right now on if you spend any time on Twitter. So, of course, it's a national security threat. We
Okay.
need comprehensive legislation, top to bottom, on this. I think the difference in our perspective, I don't mind biting off a single piece of the pie that's very easy to sell to a bipartisan group of people, and using that as a springboard to get to where we need to go. I think the contention, as I'm hearing, is you want it all at once, and that's just not the way politics works.
I don't know what you don't know
Well,
what I want. So I haven't stated what I wanted. So
well,
like you don't know that yet. But
okay,
okay.
fair enough.
So
But
to
we,
be
hey,
clear,
Prime, we
hold
do
on,
gotta
no.
get
I gotta respond. I'm going somewhere. Sorry,
briefly,
Wick,
and
I'm
then
going
we gotta
somewhere.
give it to
Hold
Christina.
on, hold on. So okay, great. So you're saying that these other companies are also national security threats. US companies are national security threats.
Potentially, yeah.
Okay. So then how would selling this company to US hands make solve this problem? If companies that are already in US hands potentially national security threats, then selling TikTok from ByteDance to a US national company doesn't actually solve that problem, correct?
China is a hostile foreign power, my
No.
dude. As
Yeah,
Noah
yeah,
pointed,
yeah. Okay,
you
hold on,
asked
hold
a
on, hold on.
question. I'm
And
going to
they're
answer it. I'm going to
okay, sure.
answer
Go
your
ahead.
question.
Go ahead.
China is a hostile foreign power. Noah pointed out it is entirely probable that we could be at war with them in the next couple of years. I'd put it at a 1 in 3 chance. So the difference is we don't run the risk of literally going to war and getting into a massive global race to produce battleships with fucking Mark Zuckerberg. That's the difference.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
ByteDance isn't. Okay. Sorry.
Christina, please.
Yeah. So but you're not wrong on that, Bree, except that those foreign data brokers are already buying data from Facebook, from
Right.
Google, from US companies. So if this I don't see that I don't actually see, I guess, the real like demonstrable difference, whether they're getting it directly from what they're capturing in their app, or they're buying it off the streets for, pennies, by the millions, from all the US companies who are very happy to sell it. Like, they're getting the data regardless. Like,
Sure.
it's happening regardless. Just to be clear here, it's US companies. It was Facebook, it was Mark Zuckerberg who committed genocide, right? Who enabled genocide to happen in China, actually. So like
Mark Zuckerberg
that's to
committed
me.
genocide?
It was
Facebook did
Myanmar.
absolutely by the way that they suppress information and the way that they continue to allow information based on their algorithm to happen. Absolutely, genocide occurred 1000%.
Yeah.
I mean, like
Genocide you're
that.
talking about in China? You said?
Well,
It wasn't
in
China.
it
China.
wasn't China.
It was
It's
Myanmar.
I'm sorry, what are you
yeah,
talking about?
Myanmar. Sorry, excuse me.
Myanmar.
In
Yes.
Myanmar, yeah, no, but the the genocide that happened in Myanmar was absolutely enabled by Facebook Messenger, and there have been other instances too where like that, if you want to look at other parts of the world, have absolutely there. Which again, like if foreign governments want to take the position that they should be banning Facebook, I think that that's a valid thing that they can do, and they should legislate that. It is interesting. I think
Some
that a lot of
do.
the same. Well, I mean, if
Many
they
do.
want to do that, well, I mean, no, I mean, from if they want to ban Facebook from operating in other countries, but
That's
when
true. Many
foreign
do.
countries want to, well, they do, and it's interesting because the U.S. government then it gets very, very upset anytime any of that is raised, which again that's a valid position to take. For me, the big issue is the hypocrisy. I would prefer to
India
see
bans Facebook
consistency on
and
this.
TikTok.
Yeah, well,
India
no,
is our
they
ally.
right,
India
and
bans
and
Facebook.
India, and we criticized them repeatedly over that
Okay, fine, we
about their
criticize them, but nothing happened. We're still allies.
I mean, but I guess my point is that like it's the lack of consistency for me that is that I have a big
Well,
problem with. But
I don't understand
regardless,
that.
regardless of the
Right.
data is being sold like ISPs actually, because we don't have data privacy laws on the books. We don't actually have anything that prevents companies from being penalized in any way. We're selling this data is being sold. Period. Like it's being sold and it's being bought by foreign adversaries all the time, and no one cares. So I don't actually. I agree with Prime here. I don't actually know like what's the big distinction here if we're just going to be giving this to a group of investors
If I may
who
ask some
will
clarifying
sure.
questions, just for both sides here. First to Warren and Prime. If there was some sort of conflict with China or a conflict with another major foreign power between the U.S. and that power directly, do you not think that the laws regarding selling this data to these adversaries might change as well?
I mean, I would hope so. I mean, we have rules with Iran and other
Hmm.
governments where we have like very strict sanctions. And if we had sanctions with that way in China, which would be much bigger than just TikTok, let's be very clear, that would impact a tremendous amount of our imports and a tremendous amount of our companies. But if we did actually have those sorts of sanctions, I wouldn't even be having this debate right now. Like I wouldn't be arguing what I'm arguing. We don't, though, is the thing. So I feel like that's kind of like putting the cart before the horse, in my
Okay.
opinion. I think
What
that
would you
like that
propose?
it's just I mean, I think that w- w- we're not at war with China. Like we're not. So we don't have sanctions against them. So we have relationships with them. We rely on them a tremendous amount, both for imports and exports. So if we're going to
Wait a
continue
second.
that relationship, I don't
We have export
understand
controls on semiconductors,
on certain types of semiconductors.
right? That's right,
And
and machinery.
right. Well, but there are loopholes. My point being, like, there are certain types and things that we can control, but we don't have broad sanctions. It's not like Iran, where we literally, like, if it was a situation like that, again, I wouldn't be having this debate. I would say, okay, that's the law and that's been settled.
Y-
This to me just seems very
You're
spurious based on where we
absolutely.
are.
Oh, hopefully Brianna comes back.
Oh,
It's a shame.
that's really, yeah, that is a shame. But
Yeah,
go ahead.
yeah, I'll answer. Yeah, so you've done a great job there, Christina. I agree with you. Oh, she's back. Uh, okay, so I'll respond. Can you hear us, Brianna? I'll wait until you're muted on Discord.
Apologies. Please proceed.
Okay, great.
Okay, go
Glad to
ahead.
have you back. Yeah, so this talking point about China like makes no sense. Right, a 1 in 3 chance that we're going to be at war with China, our largest trading partner. 1 in 3 chance where like we literally rely on if we're going to be worried about China, right? Let's worry about like the massive drug imports that we have there that we've offloaded from American shores, American jobs we've sent to China, right? Where they have poor quality control standards, which has been proven time and time again. That's it. Okay. Oh, she's working on it. Time and time again.
Yes.
Like, let's worry about that first before we worry about like, oh, well, China might suppress the fact that the U.S. is at war with doing a Taiwan incursion. Like this is clear xenophobia. which has
What?
been expressed here. I'll repeat it again because Brianna wasn't here. But this is a clear xenophobia that's being pushed, that we're going to be at war with these individuals. Now, again, I'm not a fan of the CCP, right? We can go down the list of how terrible they are, and the human rights abuses and all that, but the U.S. doesn't care about any of that stuff, right? That's not like actual concern of us. Are the trade doors are wide open. So again, it doesn't seem to make sense that for this specific uh, company, right, that's specifically named in the bill. Let's not forget that this specific company is being forced to sell for national security reasons, and not
Okay.
like pulling back drug imports.
I just a housekeeping thing. Brianna, I hope you can fix your issues. But super chats will be read at the top of the hour, and then we'll read them again right before we end the show. But keep sending them in. I'll get to them. Don't worry. But I want to give Noah and Brianna a chance to respond to that because they both made some claims, said some things, and I
Mhm.
want to give you the floor, uninterrupted, Prime, to kind
What
of
crime?
to go through it. Go ahead. Now we'll start with Noah, and then we'll get to Brianna.
Wait, what am I responding to?
Clear xenophobia. It's ridiculous,
Xenophobia.
right? Ridiculous that we're going to war with China, right? That's a
Xenophobia, like
ridiculous thing to say.
if you attach the word phobia to something, it shouldn't just mean fear. It should mean irrational fear. And if anyone who says that fear of war with China is irrational has just not been paying any attention to anything that the Chinese government leadership says or anything that they do over the last few years. It's just like, it's not a phobia, it's a rational, reasonable fear. I mean, Xi Jinping has, begun telling his military constantly to quote unquote prepare for war. Massive military exercises stepped up around Taiwan, confrontations in the South China Sea, taking reefs from the Philippines, fighting India along their disputed border, massive military buildup and all these other kinds of things. Like, it's not, like, that's not phobia to be worried about that. That's prudence. That's like sino-prudence. Like, like if you think, as for going to war with a trading partner, I know that there's a theory that countries don't go to war with the countries they trade with, and that theory was espoused by this guy Norman Angel, before World War I. On the eve of World War I, the day before they went to war, Germany and the United Kingdom were each other's largest trading partners, and yet they went to war, a war that killed millions and lasted for many years. The day after, they were each other's largest trading partners at the time. So like, no, it's worth being scared of, man. It's like, you better be scared. It's not a phobia. I don't know.
Hey, Brianna, go ahead.
I know about this because I read Noah's blog. To be honest with you, I was not as tuned in to just how unprepared we are militarily, like resource-wise, to go to war with China. And my dude, Prime, I really encourage you, like, go out there and read some news, like about the war games that China is conducting all around Taiwan. Like, read about what happens to your ability to buy a new computer if we don't have access to like the manufacturing base that's there. Like, this is a really, really serious issue. I personally believe the entire reason we got the CHIPS Act passed is because of some of the NATSEC concerns that are coming out of here. So, like, I'm sorry, Noah is just dead on. It's not racist to take national security seriously. And again, these are not standards they apply to us, right? They would happily do this to all of us. I really
Should we be better than
encourage you.
them?
Something Noah talks about in his blog a lot is the arsenal of democracy. And yeah, I agree with that. We should be better, but that doesn't mean we just ignore national security threats. And this is an eminently reasonable one.
So, you asked me to read about the war games that China is doing in the South China Sea.
Mhm.
Yes, I'm aware of what China's doing. I'm aware of the artificial islands that they've built to extend their reach there. I'm aware of the Belt and Road Initiative. I'm aware that they are claiming naval territory. Uh, like a territory that's never been theirs previously, and the tensions between those neighbors. So don't worry, don't worry. I'm on the same page there. Got it.
And
However,
it's really
I also
confusing.
know that the U.S. Does war games in that area as well. The U.S. Works with North Korea, with Taiwan, sells weapons within
South Korea,
that
you mean?
sphere.
But
Oh, sorry, I said North Korea.
yeah, you
Excuse me,
did.
South
I was
Korea.
about to say, I
Apologies,
don't think so.
apologies.
But go ahead.
Apologies, right? I was thinking because okay, whatever. But yeah, and with Japan, of course, our large ally there. That we have these relations, and then talking was it Noah talked about the dangerous rhetoric that you hear from the CCP. Have you heard? Yes, yes, I've heard. I've heard about the Chinese every so often saying that they're going to invade Taiwan, and they might actually at some point. I don't know. I can't say for sure, right? But I've definitely heard of their strong stance against the Western imperialists. I've also heard American politicians do the exact same thing to China. If the Chinese are saying this, that would seem to be a rational response. Talked about rationality, right? A rational response to the U.S., right? And U.S. politicians constantly talking about how we're at war. We're just about at war with China, right? Like we're at a Cold War already. Again, with this massive trading partner, with entanglements that we haven't seen in like history, right? Like the way our economies are entangled hasn't been actually replicated previously. Like this our global trade today is different from global trade or anytime else in the world. To be very clear. But so I do think that these things are overblown. I don't think it's impossible. Certainly not. Right. They are a party that can actually fight a war against the United States, and so we should of course be concerned. But is TikTok the path that is the greatest concern? There are a whole list of issues that I love to tackle, right? And I think we could find common ground there. But TikTok, really?
Yeah. Information space is a really critical part of modern warfare. It's arguably the biggest part of it. And look, if you want to talk God, no, I'm not trying to like whore out your blog, but it's really, really good on this issue. Like, so first of all, you really have to understand, like militarily, we are in no way prepared for this. Like just flat out not prepared for it. Our supply lines with this, like I don't want to get into a whole like where we're going as a tripolar order.
Yeah, just to be clear, I do want to rein it back into the TikTok stuff,
fine.
right?
Let's go back to TikTok.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Rein it in a little bit.
Overall,
let me
please go ahead.
Say, I'm sorry for talking over you before.
No, don't. It's
had too much caffeine.
Yeah, no problem.
We love it, actually. It's blood sports. Go ahead.
What frustrates me is not anything that you guys are saying. What frustrates me is how vulnerable America is with regards to China, and how unprepared and wrong-footed we are.
Yep.
And TikTok is, I agree that TikTok is not the biggest part of it. I do not think that forcing TikTok to sell itself to an American company is anywhere close to the largest thing we need to do. The largest thing we need to do is restore the defense industrial base, which is something we're not doing. And so TikTok is only a small piece of this. And my frustration comes from the fact that I think Americans don't realize the threat. Like even, and it's not because they're stupid, and it's not because we're poorly informed, it's not because TikTok has brainwashed us. It's because we went so long being this unquestioned, just dominating superpower, that the idea that someone could be more powerful than us, just suddenly over just a couple decades become more powerful than us, is something that breaks our brains. It's something we're so used to operating in this idea of like America is so dominant that we basically are the world. America is the world. We're the world. That Washington is the capital of the whole world, and that Washington, the U.S. government, stands above the rest. And then the Chinese government or the French government or the Russian government are just these little guys who like play within the world umbrella created by America. I think there was some truth to that in the 1990s and maybe the early 2000s. But I think that, and I think America got used to thinking of ourselves as that, but now that's a dangerous way to think. And I think we need to, Americans, we're so used to thinking about, to assuming that we're so strong and powerful, that our country's so dominant, that it's not true anymore, and it's going to be a long time before we wake up and realize that. So I'm frustrated, not with you guys at all, because I know your heart is in the right place. I'm frustrated with the country, with my country, America, and our failure to realize this threat. It's not a phobia. It's just conditions have changed, and there's some scary stuff out there, and things could go bad really fast. I don't think we're ready for it, and that's why I'm experiencing frustration.
So
I
just real quick. I hear you, Warren, and I hear you, Prime, when you talk about how it's not enough, right? Like, it's not enough that there's still going to be all these huge issues with China. It's still going to be a lot of security risks with all these things. But I guess just to ask you directly, Christina, if not banning or forcing sale of TikTok, right? If not that, how would you combat the undue influence that foreign actors such as China could have on people? Because I don't think any of us could. Maybe you would. So excuse me if I'm putting your words in your mouth, but social media has such a large impact on how we think and what we talk about, right? We see it all the time with a large portion of topics. So if not forcing this sale, how would you go about it? I'm just really curious. Go ahead.
Okay, so I mean, and it's a tough question. I think that I would look, for instance, if there've been very clear, again, like violations of existing US laws, and I'm not talking about theoretical things, I'm talking about like actual violations of laws, then I think that would be one way to go about it, trying to enforce those sorts of things. I also think, frankly, to go back to like setting policy, setting laws, and if they're not followed, then you can, I think, go to the point where you're saying, well, then you're not allowed to operate in this country. But having laws that are actually around, data privacy and data brokering, I think having instances like that. I think also, having very clear cut, again, like we wanted to actually talk about legislation. This is where it gets tricky for me, because I'm a big free speech person, and I don't feel super comfortable with legislating around like what networks or sites should have to do in terms of disinformation. As deplorable as I might find it, I also am very bothered by the idea that we might somehow have something like that enacted into law in some way. So I think that if we want to look at like the undue influence, I mean, I think there are a few things we can do. I think one would be to actually find out like what is the real threat? What is the real potential here? Is this something that we are making bigger than ourselves, or is this something that we are like losing focus from the actual big threats that might be coming from the same place? Would be the first thing. And I think the second thing would be to, have very clear cut laws about how our data is handled and sold, and to de-incentivize that, especially from US companies, so that there's not as much as an opportunity for that to happen, and there are real consequences, and those consequences should be strict and should be severe, so that it doesn't happen. I mean, it would be impossible to stop all data leakage from happening, but we could cut down on a lot of things, and I think that would do a lot. But in terms of the undue influence, I mean, there's going to be people who are going to use U.S. companies as they did in past elections to influence society. That's just, I think, a reality of the world that we live in now, and I don't know if it's I don't think it's conceivable for us to actually be in a place where we can kind of put that genie back in the bottle without having significantly more media literacy and, potentially having. I don't really like the regulations around social media, because I think that it can go against the people that it claims to protect far too easily. But I think in terms of being able to shut down data privacy concerns if we had real data privacy legislation. And I think that if we had maybe better media literacy and if we focused on some of the much bigger threats that are happening from other places, that might do a lot. But I don't know if there's anything we can do to stop
Fair enough.
disinformation, to be honest with you.
And to that point, to Brianna and to Noah's side, and I'll get to you in a second, Prime. I do have to read
Sure.
these super chats in a second, though.
Sure. Take your
But
time.
just to that point, um, I understand that you guys think this is a targeted bill. It's very targeted, and there's not very much room for abuse. But
I don't think
potentially,
I said that.
oh well, I think Noah might have. Maybe it's very possible I misheard. That's fair.
Mhm.
I don't know if there. I think it's much less targeted than the media discussion has indicated, but there could be room for abuse, and we'll have to curb the abuse
Sure.
if it happens. But I think the courts will.
How
care of
I
it.
guess I'd ask just directly for both of you. How likely do you think abuse will happen? Like there has been some conspiracy theories that this was they're being forced to sell it so that other private investors can just swoop in and buy this, right? Just swoop in and get this very lucrative asset, right? How likely do you think that something like that happening is? What do we think?
I think it's a confluence of factors. I think the political process is going to work itself out. It doesn't surprise me that Mnuchin is putting together, a giant pool of capital to buy it. That's the political process playing out. But I also don't need everyone's motives to be pure here, right? Like one of the things about a democracy is there are a bunch of incentives like all working together to get to the right outcome. I care about the national security threat. And just to leap off this and address something Christina said, I think there's like this tendency for us to get really utopian sometimes when we talk about this stuff and pretend like we have a functioning Congress, and we don't. We just don't. We need to accept that we don't have a Congress that is interested in technology regulation, and the fact that they care enough about this in a bipartisan way to get us like a small slice of what we need to do to be safe as a country. I'm fine with that. So don't care if people's motives are impure. Don't care if greedy capitalists are going to come along and take advantage of it. I care about keeping my country safe.
Okay, let me get to these super chats and then we'll continue this discussion. So, $10 from 𝕍𝖎. Thank you for the $10. It's not Facebook's policy to suppress particular information. If people use WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger for evil purposes, that is a blip. When TikTok bans or suppresses info, it is by design. Thank you for the $10. Infallible Foul for $5. Noah's beating that war drum like Tim Pool beats the Civil War drum. Don't worry, it's not weird when our side does it. Thank you for the $5. And $2 from Cryborn. The threat is potentially existential. And gang, keep getting those in. I'll read them before we go to closings. But yeah, more money is good for me. And thank you for the gift subs on Twitch. Really appreciate you. Cryborn, thank you. Okay, and with that, I want to give Noah and Prime a chance to get into this discussion again. Go ahead. We'll start with Prime, and then we'll get to Noah. Go ahead.
So I wanted to quickly agree with the direction that Christina, right, film girl, yeah,
Yeah.
has been going in. She's spot on. That we need to have a digital bill of rights. Like absolutely, like this is a new. I mean, this is an area of life that's critical to both Americans personally and economically. And what companies have been allowed to do is amazing. Like there's interesting like discussions happening in the video game space about exactly this, about like where you're quote unquote buying digital goods. But it turns out you're kind of leasing them and the company can just do whatever, right? They can just like pull it back. So yeah, you spent the same amount that you would for a physical edition, but if the company like Sony or some other game publisher wants to like make some alteration or just get rid of that product, they can just do that, and then you're asked out. That's an issue, right? That's an issue that matters to Americans, and that's an issue to a certain population of Americans, of course, right? But that's an issue that intersects with our lives. A digital bill of rights to cover free speech issues in the digital age, economic issues like in terms of rights and reworking copyright, which would be fantastic. That would be incredibly useful. And I agree with Brianna when she said that we don't have a Congress that's interested in legislating this or really anything else. I think that, especially with what I had alluded to previously, with the deep economic ties they have with companies like Facebook and well, any of the tech companies, they're all firmly entrenched in Washington at this point. That will make things very difficult, and we need an outcry, a moment to like speed things along. I don't think this is it though. I don't think what's happening with TikTok is that moment that the people are crying out for. Instead, I I think they are responding to being politicians are responding to other pressures that are entirely separate. Um, you asked what should be done, digital bill of rights, but also I think what happened previously, the Oracle intervention was absolutely perfect. Yeah, now we have a deep insight into the company. Now we have a trusted American company, right? Trusted as far as you can trust a private organization that is also looking into that's storing the data, managing it, right? And as a third party check, there needs to be nothing else. And one last question, and then I'm done. If there is a sale, right? Because our friend Noah and Brianna were talking about like suppression of information, right? If there is a sale of TikTok, and afterwards, those individuals suppress pro-Palestinian messages, right? Do you think that action should be taken against whatever group, whatever financial group is in control of TikTok? Please.
I would love for us to pass a national bill that would get rid of some of these algorithm like shenanigans that are going on. One of the few things that ByteDance did that I can say positive about them in the last 4 years is they did start to begin to bring people in, experts in to audit the code, basically. I would love to see a bill where this is something anyone can do. I think, yeah, the New York Times, they have to respond editorially to the choices that they make. And I don't think Facebook is any different. It's the biggest publishing platform in the world, so I would welcome that. But it's never going to happen.
Okay, I wanna get Noah's opinion here, because a very direct question was asked, and I'm just really curious. So yes, the sale goes through, it passes the Senate, etc. The private company gets it, and then suddenly there's evidence that they're manipulating the data. Is that actionable? Do you think it should be?
No, I mean we would already have. I mean, we already know they're doing it, so we already would have taken the action. I mean, like, what are we? We're not going to start a war over finding out that China was censoring data on a Chinese-owned app.
No. I mean, like, after the sale. So after the sale.
After the sale.
And the private company.
You mean
if
the private company's censoring data?
Yes.
Okay, so that's an interesting question because first of all, I think governments are different than private companies, and we have to regard governments as different than private companies. Facebook's not a government. Twitter's not a government. Elon Musk's not a government. They may be powerful in their own way as companies, but it's different than a government. They don't have armies, all this stuff. They don't make laws. And I think that we've cyberpunked ourselves a little into thinking that like Facebook is equivalent to like China. That's no, like we're not in the future that much, guys. Like Facebook doesn't have an army, and it doesn't, it exerts some sort of influence on the world, but it's not reasonable to compare private companies to governments.
Okay.
And,
I'm sorry. I thought you were done. I apologize.
No. I'm saying that we do need to think about these issues that Brianna's talking about, right? We need to think about algorithm censoring things, and we need to think about fairness. And I do think that sometime in the future we'll make a new fairness doctrine. You guys know what the fairness doctrine was, right?
Yeah.
Said you had to hear out both sides. I think on social media, fairness doctrine would say, you can't use algorithms to specifically repress political ideology, so you can't like use algorithms to suppress pro-Palestine people, for example. I think in the future we will try to do that. Now the fairness doctrine got struck down by the courts, and we have to take that into account, and we'll have to deal with that.
Yeah.
But
The fairness doctrine was also. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. Go on.
yeah, sorry.
You can
No,
interrupt a
go
little.
ahead.
It's okay, a little.
Okay, I was just going to say the fairness doctrine. I don't know if that's an apt comparison because A, it was struck down by the courts, but B, it was about communications happening on U.S. airwaves, right? Like that's really where that was about. I think that's different here, and I think that's actually one of my biggest problems, if I'm being completely honest, about this bill is that we're essentially saying that the US government, because of who owns something, because we don't like it, we are going to prohibit that from existing on what I consider to be fairly, public platforms, the internet at large, app stores at large. We are criminalizing those actions. It's to me,
How do you think
I
cell
think the
phone towers talk to each other? The
right,
same
but that's
airwaves that we used for broadcast TV, man.
right, but that's different from but AT&T wasn't criminalized for if people wanted if
No.
terrorists wanted to use AT&T to make phone calls. That's
I
the
don't think the
difference.
TikTok bill is similar to the fairness doctrine. What I was saying is I think in the future, we'll probably look at doing something similar to the fairness doctrine in the future. And we probably will use the government ownership of the internet infrastructure and spectrum to justify it. That's going far afield. That's getting distracted. What I want to say is TikTok bill is not like that, right? TikTok bill is about government because I still haven't heard any opponents of this bill. I have not heard anyone give a good answer to the question of why the Chinese Communist Party, the government of China, should be able to censor what Americans see and what Americans say. Why should the Chinese government, Facebook, whatever, it's a private company, yeah, it might censor some stuff and, it's hate speech, blah, blah, blah. And then, right, why should the Chinese government have this power to stop our kids? If our kids want to talk about Tiananmen Square, why should some Chinese guy in the Chinese military or whatever overseas, why should he be able to say, no, American kid, you're not allowed to post about Tiananmen Square. We're going to shadow ban you. We're going to suppress you. Why should that be okay? Why should we allow that? I don't understand. No one's given me a good answer to this yet.
I'm going to answer that. I'm definitely going to tackle that. So
I want to
give
hear
me
the
a
answer.
second. But before then, I have to ask you, Noah, to help me reconcile two different statements from you, right? Brianna Wu earlier, she replied to something that I had said, and she said that Zuckerberg isn't like building warships or something along those lines, that
Right.
he isn't a foreign adversary. And you follow up later on just now saying that Facebook is just a private company and like these things aren't analogous, right, to dealing with a foreign power that is it's a military power, right? Okay, which is fair. But you specifically with TikTok, the thing that you told me was the threat, right? That you brought up was them suppressing an invasion of Taiwan. That the
Helping the invasion.
helping an invasion, right?
Helping the
That would be a
invasion of
future
Taiwan, yeah.
helping that's helping the invasion.
Using TikTok to assist them in an invasion, which is something Zuckerberg couldn't do because Zuckerberg can't invade stuff.
Yeah, fair.
Yet,
He
not
cannot.
yet,
He cannot
but
invade.
go on.
Yet.
Not yet. Yeah,
He can
sure.
he can threaten Elon Musk with MMA, but that's about all he can do.
Understood. So so the threat there is that TikTok would assist. But what if Facebook did that, right? Not that invade. They can't invade, indeed, right? But what if they assisted? So if Facebook suppressed that invasion was happening, right? Suppressed anti-Chinese information, right? Just a few hashtags there, here or there, that maybe no one would notice. But if Facebook did that, how would that not be a problem if China wanted it to? Right? We know that Zuckerberg is in bed with the Chinese. I mean, we have pictures of a video of him with CCP officials. There was this humiliating video of him like taking a run outside in Beijing because and saying that the air quality is perfect when the air quality was specifically not perfect. It was hazardous to people's health, right? But he was doing that to show his loyalty, right? He has subordinated himself, and American companies in general have subordinated themselves to
Yes.
Yes.
Facebook, right? Yeah,
Yes.
sorry, not Facebook,
China.
to China.
China. Yeah.
And so, if they're responding to pressures, right, indirect pressures from the Chinese government, how would that not be just as bad?
Well, okay, so A, it's bad. I'm worried about that too. I'm very worried about that. But I don't, and I think we need to address it. And the fact that we need to address that doesn't stop the fact that we need to address TikTok, but I think it has to be addressed a different way because of the different ways we treat foreign governments and domestic private companies. But I think we need to address it. And I think you're absolutely right. This is a big problem. I think Zuckerberg, ironically, is probably the least problematic when it comes to China because China banned his products in China. So they don't have that economic leverage over him at this point. But Elon Musk, certainly he needs to build his cars in China, right? And so he owns Twitter. And so I think that is an even a bigger case of exactly what you're saying. And so, yes, I'm worried about it. It's a big problem. How to deal with that problem is hard because of, we have all kinds of laws protecting private companies, private citizens, what they can do. And yes, the fact that we've applied those laws to giant mega corporations like Facebook or whoever, the same way we'd apply them to you or me, and treating companies as individuals is bullshit. And it's bad. It's dumb. It's, can I call the Supreme Court dumb? Yeah, because it's Twitch. And so, or Discord, I guess. It's not Twitch.
No, we are on Twitch,
we're on-
Kick, and
yeah, we're on
YouTube
Twitch.
right now. So
Okay,
Fair enough.
whatever it is, I can call the Supreme Court dumb.
You can.
So,
You can call them
they're
retarded.
dumb.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
retarded. Corporations are, sorry to the mentally disabled community. Yes, it's bad, and I want to deal with it. And the way that we have to deal with it by different means. TikTok is scarier. Those things are scary. I'm scared of that. I'm worried about that. I'm worried about China using that power to control our corporations with money, right? With market access, with et cetera. I'm even more worried about the Chinese government, controlling our speech directly. So it's like, yeah, I'm worried about that, but I'm worried even more about this other thing, and the legal methods that we have to use to deal with these things are different because of the way our system of rights is set up and the way our system of legal precedents is set up. So you're not wrong. I do worry about it, and I want to deal with it. And the fact that this TikTok bill doesn't deal with all that other stuff, to me, is not a reason to ditch it. It's a reason to do other stuff too.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I'll answer your other question.
I'll let you
right-
answer it, but then
you
we got to
want
go to
Brianna?
Brianna. Brianna wants in. So answer
Okay.
that. Ask your question, answer it, and then we'll go to Brianna. Go ahead.
So you want me to answer Noah's other first
yeah,
question?
yes.
Okay, sure. All right. So you asked why should some Chinese official in Beijing be able to tell an American what to post? I don't think we have any evidence that they actually have.
They admitted it.
We don't have any evidence. So there is the incident you were talking about previously, where TikTok employees, Chinese TikTok employees, and U.S.-based TikTok employees access data from.
I'm not talking about no.
Okay.
I'm talking about this other thing, the other admission that they made. So they I can post in the chat. It's this was in 2019. Okay, so this was even before the pandemic. So it was years ago, and they claim they don't do it anymore, although statistical evidence says they still do. Blah blah blah. Washington Post. Hold on. The documents reveal. Leaked documents detailing the site's moderation guidelines. The documents revealed by The Guardian for the first time, left-wing British newspaper, lay out how ByteDance, the TikTok headquarter technology company, is advancing Chinese foreign policy aims abroad through the app. The guidelines divide banned material into two categories. Some content is marked as a violation, which sees it deleted from the site entirely, but lesser infringements are marked as visible to self, which leaves the content up but limits its distribution through TikTok's algorithmically created feed, blah, blah, blah. A ban covers demonization or distortion of local or other countries' history, such as May 1998 riots of Indonesia, Cambodian genocide, Tiananmen Square incidents. Anyway, also they banned stuff about Taiwan, about Hong Kong, about Tibet, about Xinjiang, all this stuff. They admitted this in 2019, and they say they don't do it anymore. There was an internal document leak. They only admitted it because someone leaked the documents, right?
Okay.
And now then they said, okay, we stopped doing that. But then we look at the statistics, they're still doing it.
Yeah.
Can I
So
ask you a
Hold on,
question?
hold on.
Oh, okay. All three of you wanted to go at once. Christina, then Prime, then Brianna. You can ask your question when you. Yeah, I know you wanted to ask a question, so that's order.
I do have a hard out in 20 minutes. Just letting y'all know.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I also have to go very soon.
I understand.
Yeah.
So Christina, then
Yeah, real quick. This is my question for you. No, because I think a lot about the kind of the speech implications for a lot of this too. But here's my question for you, and this is similar to something that Prime had asked you earlier. But let's say that ByteDance is sold to a group of U.S. investors or some other group, whoever can come up with enough money for this. That's going to be a challenge for them too. But putting that aside, let's assume they can get the money. Let's assume that China wants to sell things. Let's say that the speech you're talking about is still suppressed. Things about Tiananmen Square, things about Taiwan. Now I'm basically kind of repeating that. I'm trying to get more direct with you here. Like, if
Right.
that speech is still being suppressed, do you still have a problem with it? Right? Because now it's owned by a different group of people. Like, do you still have a problem? Because for me, that's like, it feels weird for us to say that it's okay for one group of social networks to make decisions about what speech they want on their platform as private companies, but it's not okay for this other company because of where it's based. Like that just feels like that. I don't feel like that's
No,
enough of a distinction for me.
I understand, but like, and the answer is yes, I'd have a problem, but also the system of rights that we have in our country means that we have to deal with that problem a different way. Like, I have a problem with a lot of things that people say, right? I have, but our First Amendment, we have a First Amendment, and we
No, we
can't,
do. Right.
and
So if we have a First Amendment, then why are we saying that people can't
the First
have the
Amendment,
right to access? No, but let me frame it this way. Why do people not have the right to access something that even if they know it might be suppressed? Like, I know if I go on TikTok that I might not see the most active content, but I still want to see information anyway, and I want to present information. Why is my First Amendment right to access what is available and to speak, why is that being suppressed simply because of who owns it, right? And because of how they may decide to distribute it. Like that's a First Amendment right too.
note that if TikTok is forced to sell, right, you would still be able to go access China's app, the same app that other Chinese people can access, Douyin. You can still do that. I can do that right now. Yeah, it's just that TikTok itself would be an American company or German or whoever buys it. Yeah, that's right. So if you want to consume Chinese propaganda or information of any kind, you can still consume it. You can still get it. It's not cutting people off from that, right? What it's doing is it's saying that if there's an app like, on American app stores that is, uses all this American infrastructure and all this stuff, and is thus has a giant advantage in terms of being put in front of American teenagers and whoever, anybody, you and me. If there's that app that is piggybacking on this infrastructure that our government has built and that our society has created, and yet on that app, yet that app is experiencing censorship from a foreign government, well, we use CFIUS to stop things like that. Why shouldn't we use a bill?
Okay. I do want to get to Brianna, and I want to get to Prime. I know Brianna has to go soon, so we're gonna give give her some floor there. I don't think you're leaving right now, but I just want to speed things along. Go ahead, Brianna.
So Prime, I gotta ask a question, because something I've seen a lot lately is this. Like, there have been TikToks about it, and you're seeing it all over Twitter. People talking about how this is actually all about Palestine, and clearly a group of people have come together to silence what's going on with Palestine. And then just a minute ago, you alluded to some powerful business interests that had gotten together to control TikTok so they could control the conversation about Palestine. So I just wanted to ask you really specifically, what is that group and what letter does it start with that is trying to control the conversation about Palestine?
And what
Is
letter
it
does it
J?
start with?
Is it J?
Yeah, so you can try your
As the
condescending. No, hold on.
I'm going to
excuse me.
interrupt. I'm going to interrupt as the one resident Jew here, or possibly. I say that it is not anti-Semitic at all to be concerned that information about Palestine is being suppressed, and I do not believe that this is in any
I'm
way
just saying
anti-Semitic.
there's a bunch of conspiracy
Yeah.
theories out
So-
there. I just want to know who has
Yeah, so
who
don't-
is planning this? Who is
So
planning
don't try
this?
me. So don't try me.
I'm
Don't
just
try
asking a
me.
question.
I
Who's
know. Yeah, I
planning
know
it?
you're just asking questions.
Sure.
I hear you. Don't try me. Don't think that you can try to suppress me by implying some anti-Semitic acts, right?
I'm just asking who's
So yeah,
running
you're
the
just asking
game.
questions. I know you're just asking questions.
Yeah.
I
Can
can
you answer
just
it?
ask
Can
very
you
rude
answer
and
it?
leading questions about you as well.
Can you
So
answer
no,
it?
I don't think it's a Jewish coalition
Mhm.
that is necessarily trying to buy TikTok. I think though, allies, pro-Israel allies, are
Oh.
working to do this, right? So I think that when we're talking about the ADL, right? The ADL specifically has brought this up. Their President Jonathan Greenblatt talked about how we're having a generational problem with Israel's popularity. He's referencing, and we have a TikTok problem. He specifically brought that up. I have other quotes I can bring up as well, where they're specifically talking about how TikTok is interacting with this very current moment. So yes, but
So it's the Jews and Jewish allies
yeah,
in the
so
ADL.
don't try me.
Okay.
Don't try me.
No, I'm
So
just repeating your answer back to you.
anti-Zionism isn't
Got it.
anti-Semitism. Don't try me.
Sure.
I
Okay, so it's
see you.
anti-Zionists
Don't try.
that are doing this, just to be clear?
No, I
Like
said no, I said
anti-Zionists?
Zion. I'm sorry. I know you're having trouble
Yeah.
following me. Don't
Could just
worry.
be
I'll
Republicans,
spell out.
man.
I will spell this out for you because you're having
Sure.
trouble. So I'll do it
Sure.
in small words. So I'm saying that there are people with Zionist leanings, pro-Zionist leanings,
Got it.
who
Okay.
are part of who have brought up how TikTok is a problem with the younger generation, that it's spreading pro-Palestinian messages.
Okay.
And I can actually bring up articles talking about that. I'm not making that up. But that doesn't mean that this is a Jewish cabal. I don't mix being Jewish with being Zionist. Those are two separate things. Maybe you don't understand that, right?
Okay.
And do
You
you
don't have to
understand that? I'm just
insult me.
asking
You
questions.
don't have to insult me.
Do you? But I'm just asking questions. Do you understand that being Jewish is different from being a Zionist? Do you understand that?
I understand that to
Oh,
you
you do.
that.
I'm just asking questions.
Wick, can you moderate here, please?
Hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on. I understand, but he answered your question. You can answer his.
Sure. So I understand that you think that gives you a pass. I also think that you're lapsing, maybe unconsciously, into some things that are. It sounds really nasty, man. You may get really defensive when I'm pointing that out. I think it's really, really crazy to call this like a Zionist conspiracy when the truth is we've been talking about this for 4 years. And I think the fact that you're discounting everything that's happened since 2020, I think that speaks to where your mind is going on this, and I think it's something you should examine.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm going to throw a flag on this play.
Oh, wait,
I think
wait.
that
I'm going to throw a flag
disagree
on
with
this
Brianna.
play.
Right,
Right,
I disagree with you.
Wait. You like?
We're gonna
she
go to
specifically-
the Jewish voice on the panel. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Noah,
All right. Yeah,
what are
I
your
think
thoughts?
you don't have to look for a conspiracy to see people who are upset about, anti-Israel messaging on TikTok or any other platform. Republicans overall support Israel very strongly. In fact, a majority of Americans are supportive of Israel, no matter what we may think of that support. But it's true. And I've seen people complain about that on TikTok. I don't think that's what's motivating the bill because the Israel-Palestine thing's been going on for a while. And again, I don't care. I don't think there's evidence that TikTok is censoring pro-Israel messages because when they did the study, that wasn't one of the ones that can't suppress. It was all China-related stuff that they found being suppressed. I don't think they're doing that. And I think that what we saw with this bill is that it was introduced in a big hurry. And suddenly the House Intelligence Committee briefed people on some stuff and people got really freaked out and blah, 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 blah. And Democrats got freaked out too. And I do not. I think Israel-Palestine stuff's been going on for a while. There's no evidence that stuff's being suppressed on TikTok, and I don't think that was what lit a fire under these guys' butts. All right, I think it was Taiwan related or somehow China military related. I think that's because if you look at Mike Gallagher, who's the guy who pushed this bill, he has never been an Israel-Palestine guy. He doesn't care. He only cares about one thing, and it's like China and the Chinese military. That's all that Gallagher cares about. He's been the big spokesman for this bill, and I think it's pretty clear that whatever this is suddenly about, it's military related. And I think Palestine, I know a lot of people are upset about this, and I know a lot of people, want to put a lot of our conflicts in these terms, but I don't think it's related. It's not anti-Semitic to think that, people are upset about pro-Palestine content on social media, right?
So
Right. So that's not anti-Semitic at all.
So, Wick, I'd like to thank you, Brad. And I'd like to respond to that. So, I think it's interesting how multiple times I've brought up the past, this history of TikTok. I've referenced that the past that Brianna Wu is talking about. I was the one who brought in the Oracle deal, and apparently, though, I don't understand that past. Okay, right. So I think that Brianna was being extremely dishonest, and it's kind of disgusting. But like I think it's interesting that the way to defend by this current action against ByteDance is to then claim that anti-Semitism is afoot, right? Like, because that's what I've been talking about, right? That's literally the tactic. So to say that, well, we can't actually discuss this, it must be anti-Semitic, right? Where's your mind headed? Your mind is exactly like that attitude is exactly what I was addressing. So thank you for illustrating
We are
that
going to have to
the
let her
audience.
Dude,
respond to
no.
this.
Hold on.
Oh,
Dude,
you want
I
to say
sat
something
here,
now, don't
I
you?
gave you,
Please go
first
ahead.
of all, you're being an asshole. So second of all, I sat
started
here
it.
and both Noah and I gave you an hour and a half of thoughtful critiques about this. I was talking about something I thought you were saying that really lapsed into some anti-Semitic tropes. And then, you showed you think it's all about the Zionists that are behind this. So I think that I was onto something. But don't try to portray this like I didn't have other answers for that, because I actually just spent 90 minutes giving that to you.
Yeah, so you questioned my integrity. You called me anti-Semitic. You
I did not do
implied-
that.
No,
I
you
did not
implied, you
do that.
implied.
Hold on, both of you
Sorry, that's
stop.
right, you
Both
implied.
of you. Okay, okay. I love a little blood sports. I do love a
Hold
little
on,
blood sports.
Wick,
I will
she
let you
called my
respond. I'm
integrity.
saying you got to go one at a time, and I
Okay.
don't want this. We're gonna get to closings in like 5 minutes here. Okay.
Yeah,
Sure.
I gotta
we are
go.
going-
I gotta
yeah.
go.
Sure. Okay. Well, yeah. So you questioned my integrity, called me, or implied that I might be anti-Semitic. My mind might be going in some weird places, and then I'm the asshole for responding to that. I want to make that clear. Okay. Well, it was very nice meeting you, Brianna.
You're an asshole for personally attacking me and losing your temper
I-
and getting
I'm
heated.
the asshole.
That's why you're an
You call
asshole.
me a
Yeah.
bigot. Okay, great.
Okay.
I didn't
Great.
say you're a
Awesome.
bigot.
Off
I
you
just said
go.
you-
gang.
Oh, you're still asking questions.
Okay.
We're just asking
I will
questions.
mute
Yeah.
both of you if I have to. We are going to go to closing statements.
Bye.
We are going to go closing statements, right? This was a great discussion for most of it. Thanks for being here, gang. Let me get to those super chats real quick, then we'll go to closing statements. I'll let Brianna go first, and we'll end with Christina. I want to thank all my guests for being here. I really appreciate you. Hopefully, we can have you all again sometime. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about therapy culture. It should be great. Tune in at 6 p.m. Eastern for that. Let's get these other super chats, and then we'll end. Temperance Quill for $20. Chinese export laws won't allow ByteDance to sell to anyone but another Chinese company, and the CCP isn't going to change their export laws just so they can. So please stop entertaining that. That's even an argument. Thank you for the $20. $2 for Cryborn. Prime anti-Semitic dog whistling. LOL. Thank you for the $2. Okay, that said, start with Brianna. We'll work our way around. Brianna, closing statements, closing thoughts. Go ahead. Uninterrupted, gang. And you all get the same courtesy, so go ahead.
Sure. And Prime, I hope we can still be friends after this. It's not personal. I think you yourself at the beginning of this were talking about how you're basically saying you felt that this was anti-Chinese and that we should examine our biases. I thought that was a good sentiment, so I was just trying to share it back with you. National security is a real issue. Noah talks on his blog about imagine if there was an invisible shield that kept the United States safe for a long time, and one day that shield just went away. We wouldn't notice it at first, but our enemies would start poking at it, and that's exactly what's happening right now. The Marshall Plan and everything post World War II has led to a really unusually long period of time without conflict, and it's been good. It's been really good. I think one of the downsides of that is people are taking our national security for granted. These laws controlling like foreign companies, foreign interests controlling our newspapers and our media, they made sense a generation ago, and I think we've been very just basically lazy and not carrying that into the digital age. So I think this issue matters.
Thank you for being here. Really appreciate you. I know you have to go soon, so I understand. Primecayes, go ahead.
Sure. I don't know. I've been in much more heated debates than this, so that's fair. And I have no reason to burn a bridge. So it was very nice meeting you, Brianna Wu. And I'll address the xenophobia thing. So and maybe I didn't make myself clear. I didn't mean to imply that any of you were like hateful of Chinese individuals. I have no evidence to imply that. So I just want to be very clear, right, in case there's any confusion on that. I don't think, as far as I know, that any of you are hateful to Chinese. But like this strain within American politics tends to touch on long-standing xenophobia, right? Like this idea that this external Chinese threat is ever present for a century or more, right, within American politics. That's all I was trying to imply. But there we go. In any case, thank you. Thank you to Lou, to Noah, to Christina. It's very nice meeting all of you and sharing this time. I think that once again that the TikTok is it's a threat the way that any particular app on your phone is a threat. The most minor apps. I had a flashlight app on my phone, and it was eventually banned by Google Play Store. It was just a flashlight app because it was massively intruding in its users, right, and sharing its data. Like it was breaking its policies. That happens with all of them, unfortunately. All of them could do that to you. So let's keep that in mind. In any case, thank you again. I'll be streaming right after this. We're going to be talking about what are we talking about? Failing public high schools. We have extremely violent public high school, and what we should be doing about that should be homeschooling or that thing or something like that. Also talking about weight loss drugs being given to teens like Ozempic, and is that the message we should be sending? So if any of that interests you, come and join us. Again, thank you, and thank you, Wick, for being kindly inviting me.
Thank you, Prime. Really appreciate you, gang. Check out his channel. You can find him on twitch.tv/Primecayes. He's a really great guy. He's the guy. The first ever show I went on Twitch was Primecayes. So, if you like my content or you hate my content, he's responsible. Noahpinion, go ahead. What do you got?
Yeah, I am pretty laser focused on this fact that America is not ready for what may be a major conflict. And when I was young in the 2000s, America was a colossus bestriding the world, and China was an afterthought. They made cheap toys for Walmart, and they've been slowly liberalizing, and so it wasn't a big deal. And then meanwhile, here's America invading Iraq, and stomping all over the supposed rules of the global order that we ourselves had created earlier. And throwing our allies to the wolves, and dropping bombs on people, all this stuff. And it was easy to see America as the empire in those years, and I think a lot of that stuck. And I think that a lot of Americans are still in that mode. Our brains are still trapped in the mid 2000s. You know, even for people who were just kids in the mid 2000s, I think those memes have survived. When, you know, America was the hyperpower, the one power in the world. You know, China was just doing its own thing, making some toys, and you know, we were the ones behaving badly, blah blah. And that era is over, and it's gone, and we're in an era that's actually much scarier than that era was. And so I think people need to understand this, and I'm just trying to figure out what the best way is to convey that information to the world, to warn people. You know, I feel like, you know, Gandalf goes to like the king in Lord of the Rings. He's like, you know, oh, these guys are about to invade. You know, and of course the guy has a spy there.
Is Prime Wormtongue in this analogy?
Okay. No, Prime's not Wormtongue. Prime's like Prime and the American public together are the king. You know, they're the king who, like, you know, we need to get the king. Because this is America, our king is just the people, right? So we need to get the king needs to understand the threat, and yet no, the spy is TikTok. That's Wormtongue. Wormtongue is TikTok whispering in your ear, no, it's not a threat. Why are you listening to him, my sire? You know, blah, blah, blah. That's TikTok. And I'm just like, no, this old man with gray hair, you know, just yelling, sitting here just yelling like, no, Saruman is going to attack you. He has so many orcs, you know, and whatever. And then TikTok is like, don't listen to him.
Okay.
Watch this shitty dance video. No, I don't know. So like, anyway, that's what's going on. And yeah, and I just need to figure out how to warn America that the 2000s are over. We're not really even the most powerful country in the world anymore, much less the super dominant hyperpower. And China under Xi Jinping is a hell of a lot more totalitarian and autocratic and expansionist and mean in all those ways than China under Hu Jintao and those guys were. Like, I know Americans don't know much about Chinese internal politics, but it's like night and day compared to the guys who were in charge of China before him, before Xi Jinping. And now he's like dictator for life now. And, you know, the way he treated Hong Kong, the way, you know, he treated domestic minorities is just like night and day compared to the people who rule. You know, most Americans just look at China and like, China, it's like one thing. It's this big red thing on a map. And like, you know, they have no idea about this country and the diversity that exists within it. And the fact that, you know, every single Chinese person I talk to is scared to death of Xi Jinping and yet can't say anything about it because China controls what, you know, it spies on them on WeChat and it can hurt their families economically. It can toss their families in jail or just destroy their businesses or whatever. It can put pressure on their families. It can control them. So Chinese people living in America can't say bad things about Xi Jinping openly because through the Chinese apps, they will be surveilled and consequences will be, you know, meted out to them, punishments. And I don't want the rest of Americans to be in that same situation that the Chinese people I know are, you know, like, because that sucks. I'm not xenophobic. I
understand.
Really feel for the Chinese people who are being, you know, controlled by a government that's much worse than the other Chinese governments before it were.
Yeah, where can people find you if they want to find you more information?
Well, you can go to my blog. It's Noahpinion, Noahpinion, and you can check that out. You know, but I don't even say all like anyway stuff as strong as the stuff I hear. Not nearly. So just trying. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. No. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate you, and yeah, it was a great talk.
Thanks.
Can
I go? I gotta go at 5.
Yeah. You guys, if you gotta go, just peace out, Girl Scouts.
All right. See you guys. Thanks so much.
I do want to give Christina time, get a closing, and tell people where to find. Please, last thoughts, last word. You.
Yeah, I mean, look, I agree with a lot of what Noah said. There are real dangers to have about China and what they do to citizens of their country, and I'm not defending any of that. What I would say is that what continues to bother me about this bill and how quickly it's been passed, is that we have another mechanism in place that their powers have been strengthened. It's called CFIUS, which has been investigating TikTok for 4 years. They have not stepped in and said that there is a national security threat that is necessary for them to push through an enforced sale, which was a process that started more than 4 years ago. I think that's problematic. I think it's a problem that we are instead having legislation that has come out of nowhere, that was very narrowly defined, that was somehow passed by an overwhelming majority of Congress because they claimed that they were scared about security threats that we haven't actually been told about, security threats that CFIUS, another executive branch group, has not seen anything about, at least to act, and that we're making this decision to essentially force or attempt to force a company to sell its assets where someone else could be enriched, and whatever our problems we have with the Chinese government, which are valid, I think that we need to have more evidence before we take these sorts of measures, because these are the sorts of things that can be long ranging. And it might be TikTok now, might be, other Chinese companies now. It could very easily, extend to countries that we have much better relations with in the future. It could also be used as a way to force US companies to make certain concessions as well. And so that's what I kind of want to say from this, is that whatever the valid concerns are, they might exist, but I don't think that we've been given enough evidence as to why this needs to be pushed through the way that it's being pushed through.
Awesome. Where can people find you if they want to find you?
Yes, I mean, you can find me on Twitter and Threads and all those other things at I'm film_girl on most social networks. So,
or you can go see our YouTube show, like all the episodes of it, the download, which is so good.
Yeah, if you want to see me talk about computer software, youtube.com/GitHub. There you go.
It's amazing.
Thank you all for being here. We're gonna let you go. I will see you guys later.
Yeah.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Okay. Gang, that was a lot. I see y'all popping off in chat. Doobie, do you want to jump on real quick and talk a little bit? They had to go. I can't force them to stay. Right? She had another appointment at 8, so you can't yell at her directly, but you can yell at me on her behalf, because I'm torn on this issue, okay? I am torn on this idea of we need to sell TikTok. There are absolutely national security concerns, right? Those are valid. I don't know if this is like banning. No, I'm totally against that. But divesting, I'm torn on. I see both. Doobie, you hate me intensely? Why do you hate me intensely? Yeah, I'm doing call-ins right now. I'll do call-ins for a few minutes. If you guys want to call in, talk to me for a little bit, you are absolutely welcome. Because I think that there's more stuff to be talked about. I don't necessarily think that... Here, I'm trying to say this artfully. It's a weird thing to imply or to push the narrative that the only reason this is being done now is because of Palestine. It is weird. It's weird. It's not, I don't know if it's anti-Semitic. I don't think so. But it's a weird thing to imply, right? Like, especially since we've been talking about doing something about TikTok for a long, long time, right? This has been building. We have done things, right? It's not that we've taken no action. We have taken action. But it's like an escalating thing, right? An escalating thing. Let's bring on Doobie, though. I'm sure he'll disagree with me, though. Doobie, my old nemesis. No, hey, how you doing, buddy?
Hello, I'm doing well.
Good. You're
Good to
gonna
talk to
ban
you.
me from reading Stormlight?
If I could,
books?
I'd ban you from reading Stormlight 5.
Why?
I would. Because you made me upset. You didn't make me upset. Just your face is there. Well, the thing that it was
It's
making me
true.
upset
My face
happened,
is
and
upsetting.
it just,
I agree.
It just transferred to you. Okay, so I think that the conversation. I totally disagree with this idea that TikTok should be banned. And I think that there is a good reason to think that the pro-Zionist interests that exist within the U.S. government and the U.S. business community, I think there's good reason to think that there is some pressure from them, like there's pressure from many groups to get TikTok to be sold or banned or whatever in the United States, right? I think there are many groups putting this pressure on the government and on our representatives and our media to cover this and to push this idea that it should be banned. I think it's really silly to say that acknowledging the existence of pro-Israel, pro-Zionist lobby groups within the U.S. is like anti-Semitic. They obviously exist, and like they exist like the evangelical interests or lobby groups exist. It's so fucking stupid to say that if you acknowledge the existence of these people that lobby for a certain like a political issue, you're anti-Semitic, right?
It's not
It's fucking
it's yeah, I agree with you. If simply like pointing it out or observing it is called anti-Semitic, I agree with you. But that's not what was done, right? And that's not what is
yeah, it is.
being done. That what is being done is saying that this is the reason, right? The reason that it is happening is this, right? Not one of the reasons or one of the pressures, but again, Prime said it directly. Pro-Palestinian narratives are being pushed on TikTok, and so a group of investors, Zionist investors, are getting
Right.
together to take it over and take it down, and they're exerting influence, and that's why it's done. Now, I think that's conspiracy-brained because, again, this isn't new, and there are pro-Palestine sentiments, more pro-Palestine sentiments on other platforms that they aren't pushing for this to happen, right? I understand that TikTok is super influential right now. I understand it's probably the biggest platform that they have, or that the especially young people are going with. But the ADL acknowledging that they have a TikTok problem, and they do, isn't evidence that they have engaged in any kind of concerted effort, right, as a group to kind of do this, right? Why would it?
But of course it's not evidence of like a specific plan or something, but it's evidence that this is something that they're talking about, and they are trying to come up with a plan, right? I don't know if you've played the leaked call for your audience of Jonathan Greenblatt, who's the head of the ADL, who I also hate intensely. I hate him much more intensely than I hate you. For exactly for this reason, by the way. Because
Well,
I
I'm
think he
not
tends to use-
Zionist or Jewish, so yeah.
Well, yeah, he is a Zionist, and that it's disgusting. But I think he's another one of these people that tends
So
to
hold
use
on, can I ask
anti-Semitism
when
as
you
as a
say
shield.
Zionist? Because I just want to be clear what you mean. So a lot of people have used this word Zionist, and they always mean different things.
Right.
So when I say Zionist, right? When I always thought Zionist simply meant you believe Israel has a right to exist, which I do. And under that definition, I'm
Cringe.
absolutely a Zionist, right? But when you say Zionist, what do you mean?
Okay, so when I say Zionist, and I think typically when people are talking about Zionism or pro-Zionism or pro-Zionists within the government, they're talking not just about people who support Israel as a nation or as a concept or as a country. It's specifically about the idea that Israel needs to be like an ethno-religious state centered around Jewish people, right? Which is what Israel is. So I dislike that, right? If Israel had a ton of Jews there and it wasn't an ethno-religious state, I wouldn't be an anti-Zionist, right? Or I'm sorry, I wouldn't be opposed to Israel. I oppose the ethno-nationalism and the ethno-religious aspect of it. And I think
Interesting.
the reason I oppose this is because I think that's one of the core driving issues behind that entire conflict in the region, is the ethno-nationalism that is built into that country. So if you could remove that, I'd be totally fine with Israel existing.
So the reason this kind of rings kind of hollow to me, right, is I don't, first of all, I don't think that's the major contributor. I think it is a contributor, but I don't think that's the reason, right? The conflict between these groups like dates back years and years and years, even before Israel became a nation, right? They've been killing each other for a long, long time. And it is a contestation over land. It is a contestation over the right to govern. And I think that to kind of put it down to ethno-nationalism is it's a way to sneak in concepts that I think there's some of that there, obviously, right? But it's not the main reason, right? In my opinion,
It's the explicit reason that Israel does a lot of the things they do. Like I don't like this idea of needing to.
Wait, do you think
maintain
that the ethno-nationalism is
second.
the reason they're
Needing to
at war in Gaza right
maintain-
now?
No, needing to maintain a Jewish supermajority, right? So this idea that they need to maintain a Jewish supermajority, the reason that exists and the reason that is a massive push for them, is because of this ethno-nationalism that the nation was formed on or formed based on. Right? That there has to be a Jewish state for Jewish people. So yeah, I think that it's obviously if Hamas is attacking Israel, Israel would attack them, whether or not there was an ethno-nationalist tinge to the country, of course. Right? But I'm saying that the fact that there is this ethno-nationalist strain, and it has been there since before, from like the earliest battles, like in the fucking 30s and shit. A lot of these Jewish groups, these Zionist groups, were very militaristically ethno-nationalists. A lot of them had intentions to go in and purge the Arabs. A lot of these Arabs also hated them for being Jews, right? So yeah, I'm not saying this is like a one-way thing. Obviously, I disagree with many aspects of Gazan culture, Palestinian culture, whatever you want to call it, right? Many aspects of that. I disagree with a lot of their religious practices, of course, but I don't think that makes it less bad when Israel is imposing an ethno-state. So,
but back to the topic at hand, which is the TikTok ban, right? I don't want to get down to the 30s and 40s rabbit hole too deep, right?
Right.
Why
Just
do
real
you
quickly,
oppose just if I can frame the question, we have evidence that they do, right, suppress certain topics, mostly related to Tiananmen Square and things like that. Why wouldn't they? If they did make a play for Taiwan, which they have said that they will do, all evidence seems to indicate that they are planning to do so. Whether they actually go through with those plans or not is a different question. But one of the first things that, again, they plan to do is to strike military targets so that the U.S. military can't respond, right? So they'll strike our bases in the region so the U.S. military cannot respond in time so that they can go take Taiwan and they say, we already got it. It's de facto done. You don't try us anymore. Like, we've done it, right? And it's going to be much harder to undo it than it would to stop it. So what is to say that they wouldn't pressure ByteDance to simply put their thumb on the scales and keep them from anyone opposing it, right? Any kind of propaganda opposing it or information opposing this? Why wouldn't the Chinese government do this?
Of course it would. If they ended up going to attempting this invasion. But I think that banning a company or forcing the sale of a company based on a hypothetical threat that they've never been able to demonstrate, which is the idea that China has access to this data in the first place, is ridiculous, right? I think it's fear mongering, and I think that as I think Prime did a good job demonstrating in the panel. Forcing the sale wouldn't actually do anything to solve the national security threat, if there is a national security threat, because Facebook user data has been accessed by China and by Russia. Twitter user data has been accessed by them. But we have massive U.S. corporations whose data is regularly accessed by China, right? So clearly, just shifting the ownership wouldn't really do anything to solve the problem. And again, they've been trying to demonstrate that this is the problem for years now, right? This idea that China's working with the leaders of TikTok, or whatever, or China's accessing user data, and it's just never been demonstrated. So it seems like they've been fear-mongering about this for years, and now that some people, some of the American public has started to fall for the fear-mongering, like, oh God, China's accessing our user data. If I install TikTok on my phone, that means China's access to my phone's data and access to all my pictures. So the fact that some people are believing this fear-mongering is now used as evidence that America supports the banning of TikTok because it's like a legitimate security threat. And that seems ridiculous to me.
So just before I let Cryborn in here, to respond to that, it's not just that we have been fear-mongering about this for years. We've been taking action on this for years. The American government has been taking action directly. They've banned from service members having TikTok on their government devices and things for a very good reason, right? We have actionable data that shows that they do this, right? And you're correct that it's not sufficient. It's not sufficient in and of itself to fix the problem. However, without doing it, there is nothing else that we could do to fix the problem. Even if we banned, even if we had put laws on the books regarding sale of data to different companies, right? Our laws do not apply in the same way to ByteDance. We would have no leverage like we would over a Facebook or an American-based company. We wouldn't have the same leverage, right? And that's the reason that the argument for divestment, that's the reason, is that so we put it in the hands of people who we can influence, who we do have leverage. If this does pop off, that we can step in and influence and affect them in a way that we could not with a Chinese-based, Chinese-owned company. That would be the argument.
Okay, so the idea is that if this were to happen, we wouldn't have the ability to ban it if it's not an American-owned company. I mean, of course we would. Like, so if we can pass a law so that American companies need to follow this rule if they're going to be, doing business in the United States or have their app in the United States, why couldn't we also have that same law that is being written and being passed apply to TikTok or other foreign-owned software programs? Like, of course we could do that. Like, there's no like,
So
why couldn't
it's
we do
much
that?
harder, right, to do it. And again, there's a reason you want to do this before it pops off, right? There are very good reasons to want to do it before it pops off, because once it pops off, damage done. We can't rewind time. So again, if the reports are to be believed, and you can say that they're bullshit, I don't know. I don't
I'm not even
have.
saying they're bullshit. I'm not even saying they're bullshit. I'm saying that what they were talking about wasn't instances of the Chinese government accessing user data. It was TikTok employees accessing user data. And one of the cases that they pointed to where they were gathering journalist information or some shit wasn't them just doing this randomly. It's because those journalists received leaks from TikTok employees where they're talking about how they're trying to shore up their data to make or their data security to stop all these issues in the United States. So those conversations got leaked, and those conversations were a fucking nothing burger, by the way. So some TikTok employees went beyond what they were supposed to. Looked at the journalist data to try to figure out where they were, see if they could figure out which employees they were meeting up with. That wasn't the Chinese government. That was TikTok's own employees trying to figure out who was leaking.
And
right? But this was presented on the panel by these people as if China was doing this, which is, I think.
Well,
we
we know that they've done it with their other apps, right? Like, we know they did this with Grindr. Why do you think that we divested and we forced this to happen with Grindr back in 2020, I believe, right? Is because we knew the CCP was collecting data on people who are engaged in these things for a host of reasons, right? You can imagine why TikTok would be delighted, or I'm sorry, not TikTok, the CCP. You could imagine why the CCP would be delighted to have the Grindr data of the Republican conservative caucus, right? You could imagine what kind of leverage that they would have over someone who is a purportedly staunch religious conservative to have their Grindr information. We can see that. There is a reason we took action, and it's not based on hypotheticals in that case, right?
Yeah, exactly. So
wait, why do we need proof though, right? Like, all we need is intent and opportunity. Okay, this is a hostile foreign power that again was using Grindr to get compromise on Americans, which they are willing to use. I mean, what was this Democratic House member that was dating a Chinese agent for a while?
Oh man, which one? Right? There's a few.
Yeah, which
right?
one? Right?
There's
like,
governors.
I mean, these are hostile
this,
actions.
right? Yeah.
Like, let's not be naive here. It's not like China has any reluctance at all. Let me finish. Let me finish.
Well, just be specific. Don't just say,
"Oh, you literally said 4 billion words."
I understand. Just be specific about the example you just brought up.
What are you talking about? A Grindr? Compromat?
No,
dude. Why would a nation not use that? If the CCP has access to closeted homosexual, to who's a closeted homosexual in the Republican Party or the Democratic Party, or wherever they need to exercise influence, why would they not use that? Don't be a child, all right? You're being naive.
I'm not being a
of course, they're going to use whatever power and advantage they can get over us. Stop being naive. This is you guys are talking about. You want proof that TikTok is doing it. Wait, dude, we don't.
Why
need
should
proof,
we do business with China?
They're a threat. They're a threat.
Why are our people eating food produced in China?
A legitimate. What's that?
Why are our people consuming food products produced in China if they're such a hostile power?
I would have a similar complaint about that, honestly.
Okay, so we shouldn't buy Chinese food. That's a fuck ton of our imports. Okay, what about the tech? What about all the toys? What about all the fucking devices in your house that come from China?
We need to decouple from China. That's just the reality of it.
It's like
they're hostile.
One of our biggest
they're an immediate threat to the American
They're not a hostile. This idea that they're like a hostile power is fucking ridiculous. They're doing whatever other country does.
It's not ridiculous. It's not ridiculous. We have interests in Taiwan.
They're spying on us just like we're spying on everybody else.
Yeah,
they're not a hostile
it's okay
power.
when we do it. I'm fine when we do it.
Okay.
Because I'm an American. I'm pro-America. Why is that such a foreign concept? I want my country.
I don't think countries spying on each other makes them hostile. All countries do this. Allies do this.
Dude, it's not just. It's not just this.
We spy on Israel.
Okay,
Israel spies on
dude,
us.
Dude, do you know how much the Chinese have stolen us in terms of intellectual property?
Sure.
Yeah, yeah, quite a
Okay.
bit. Straight from American corporations, but also plane designs from the United States military.
Yeah, and we
Um,
do the
yeah,
same shit.
but like us
And
stealing their
allies
shitty
do this to each other
designs
too.
is not the same as them stealing our designs.
Okay, again,
Okay,
allies do this to
we
each other.
invest
We
how
spy
much
on
money in
every
these
one of our
things?
allies. Like
What?
there's a massive story. Not even fuck. What was it like WikiLeaks, where they expose like the U.S. spying on Germany's ambassadors and Germany's politicians. Of course we do this. Everybody does this. Allies do this. It doesn't make us
Yeah,
hostile
nobody's
because we're
denying
doing
that.
this to each
No,
other.
nobody's
Okay,
denying
but
that we're
I'm denying the
spying. Okay.
idea that the spying makes us hostile to each other. All nations do this.
Okay, yeah, but that's not the argument. That's a straw man that you've created. That is not what I
Okay.
said at all.
What
All right,
what about our
it's
relationship makes us
what do you
hostile
understand
then?
about? Okay, there's a difference between just collecting intelligence and then exercising that, right? You
Okay,
understand that?
of course.
Okay. All right. Now, if you have a hostile foreign power that is potentially going to invade the island of Taiwan, okay, which is not an actual ally, but like we play this little game with China. But it is a critical
And
source
we're trying to
of
instigate
something
another
that we
proxy
need
war.
right now.
I get
Do
it.
you understand our needs for the chips that Taiwan produces? Do you understand how fundamental that is to our economy, our technological sector, and our military prospects going forward? Do you understand the impact that AI is going to
Yeah,
have,
I
and why it
understand.
is
But as I
necessary
just
that we win this race, and why we cannot just cede Taiwan until we have the capacity to make those chips domestically?
I understand. But so Taiwan isn't the only place we got our fucking chips, right? But it's true.
No,
It's
but they've
true.
got the
Again,
best
as I
processes.
said
They have
earlier,
the best
oh, they got the
processes. They build the
prices.
best
I
chips.
see.
Yes.
I
No.
see.
Yes. Yeah.
Well,
That's exactly
it
what it
sounds like
is.
we should be investing in other places to build up the chips there.
Oh,
This
do
doesn't
you
mean
do you understand? Do you understand how long it takes to
States is
build
going to
a
go to
chip
war?
factory?
Is going to go to
Do you
war
think
over fucking
that this is
Taiwan? You're
something that
nuts. You're
happens overnight?
insane.
No.
That's so
We're not going to war.
stupid.
We're
Then
not
what's
going
the
to war right
concern
now.
that they're going to
We
raise the
may go
price
to
of
war.
chips on us?
Oh, dude,
That's the thing.
I
They're gonna
cannot
raise the
believe this.
price
Okay,
of
I'm
chips.
gonna read some
control
super
the
chats.
This is enough for all this fucking
We
fear
won't have
mongering.
access to the chips. All right.
I'm gonna read some
Okay,
super
we
chats,
just
if I
oh,
may,
God.
so I can make some
Read the-
money
read the
here,
one I
and
put
then
about
we're gonna get
Brianna. It's
back
really
to
funny
this,
and
and I'm
it's
gonna
true.
let you respond, Doobie. $20 from Doobie. Quick reminder that Brianna got caught faking hate threads about herself to justify her claims of harassment when she forgot to log out of her main account. She's always been a dishonest scumbag. Thank you for the $20.
True.
$5 from Origin of Logos. TikTok should be banned in America, not because China might spy on us, but because TikTok is garbage and is destroying kids' attention spans. LOL. Thank you for the $5. But Doobie, you may respond. Go ahead.
Actually, I don't have a lot. I didn't realize I'd been here so long. I do need to be on Primes.
Oh,
But
okay. Yeah, we're gonna rate
Hey,
out into
Doobie.
Prime anyway.
I hate you too, you dumb bitch.
Doobie, I usually like really enjoy talking to you, and I actually enjoyed talking to you this time. Anyway, no hard feelings.
I hope a shark tries to suck your dick. Okay, that's how much I hate you right now.
Okay, gang, remember tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern, we are going to be talking to Fairy Queen, and we're going to be talking to Allison. We're going to talk about therapy culture. Is it ruining us? Is it making us weak? We'll see, right? So tune in tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern. We're going to rate in Primecayes. Remember to spam those emotes if you got them, and let them know that WhickTV sent you, okay? But let's go. We'll do it on YouTube as well. I won't leave you out in the cold, YouTubers. Thank you for the subs. Thank you for the bits. Thank you for the super chats. Remember, you can be a member on my YouTube as well. What does that get you? Warm, fuzzy feeling inside. We are going to do members-only stuff at some point. I don't know when, though. Let me add the redirect. And let me see. There he is. Boom. And we'll save. And we will see you guys later. Bye-bye, Kings. Bye.